Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Wednesday night hobby hangout. I hope everybody is well. I hope your week's going well. I hope everybody is nice and safe. I hope that you've got yourself a drink. You got yourself all comfy. You've got your paints out, ready to do a bit of hobby, or maybe you're just sitting back and having a bit of a chill. Let me know what you're up to tonight. Let me know what you're painting. Let me know what you're not painting. Let's have a quick dive into the chat and see what wonderful people we've got in from the kickoff. Marcus, the Super Pumpkin Man, he says, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to you, Marcus. Peter Cooman's in as well. He's got his Colonial Marines on the painting tray. Impressed that you're smashing through those nice and quick, mate. Very impressive. Lord Maiden, hello to you too. Mark Wright, good evening to you too, mate. Nick, good morning, Nick. I hope you are well. All the way over there in the land down under. We've got Busian as well. Good evening, afternoon, and morning. Yeah, making sure we don't miss anybody out, mate. Good evening. I was trying to think where you were there. Good evening to you, mate. Tony Howell, good evening to you, mate. He says, hello, my lovelies. Yoakum says, good evening, folks. Been out for a 1.5 hour walk in the sleet and slush. Before I go on any further, it's funny. I don't know whether it's an like a UK thing or a European thing, but we wouldn't say 1.5 hours. We would say we've been out for an hour and a half, or we've been out for an hour and 30 minutes or 90 minutes. It's funny, these things. Anyway, sleet and slush. Not really sure what it's called. I know exactly what you mean, mate. It says, so I'll start watching from the sauna. Oh, I've just got this vision of you, mate, and it's just like massive big sauna with a big fat cigar and a glass of whiskey, and yeah, oh, you got to be out there. You go. That's good enough. Blizzard says good evening as well. Good evening to you, Blizzard. Tony said, excellent choice. I don't have a sauna, but I could sit on the bog with the shower on full heat for effect. That's about as classy as it gets up here as well, mate. Stu Hayes, hello to you, fella. Good evening, Christian, as well, saying hello to everyone. ASDF said he's going to have to sit this one out, unfortunately, but he'll catch the video on demand later. Thank you, mate, and hello if you're watching this back. Macaulay's in as well. Says tonight during the stream, I'm going to try and finish my Ace of Base Mini. Do or do not. There is no try, as Yoda would say, mate. Yeah, get it done. Ortega saying he can't stay tonight, but he's looking forward to seeing Malifaux on the painting table. That's the plan tonight. I've got, as you saw in the thumbnail, I've got my Lord Cooper crew, the ones we were painting last week. I think this is the first time, actually, we've probably taken the crew, like taken a box set all the way from just primed minis right the way through, do the whole box set to finished. And tonight, if you remember last week, we were doing things like the little dogs and stuff. I've just got the bases to do, so it shouldn't be too much trouble. And then if any bases, if we finish the bases, we can always make a start on the big fella. If you haven't seen tonight, I posted a video tonight, which is another one of those kind of quick unboxing videos I've been trying to do. They're about 2 minutes long. I've tried something a little bit different tonight. I've tried kind of filming it in a slightly different way. Putting the voiceover over at this time as well, and also giving you a bit of information about what the model does in game, so showing the card. I've been teaching myself how to use After Effects and get the animation of a card flipping over. That was quite fun, something new to do. So yeah, I'm trying new stuff. I'm of the opinion that quantity has its own quality, and as long as I keep doing various different stuff, I'll kind of do enough bits and pieces that kind of I'll create stuff that the subscribers will watch. So not everybody will watch everything, but as long as I keep doing various stuff and varying stuff, people will find something to watch. So that's kind of my plan, but not let the quality slip either. Where else are we up to here? Stuart Hayes is saying, Andy, I don't know why I'm watching this. It'll only cost me more money. I'm not asking you to spend any money tonight, mate. I can't stop you, but I'm not asking you to. Bloggy's in as well. Says, hey everyone, hope everyone's having a good week so far. Glad to see you got home from work safe, mate. Lord Maiden saying hello as well. Ed Hanley, good evening to you, sir. VJ says, I want to suck your blood. Yes, I think it's we're going to see some vampires this weekend, I think, anyway, coming from Games Workshop. BUZ saying an hour and a laugh. Scott Latham, hello to you, mate. Lord Maiden saying, I've started another model for the unmade Warcry warband. See how long this chain lasts before snapping. I've been super impressed with those Warcry models. They all look like they would snap in a strong breeze. But I'll be honest, none of them, they're all really kind of quite flexible. None of them ever snapped on me. He says, touch wood. John S. still good evening, mate. He says, sauna sounds nice. Just started by cleaning my airbrush. Yeah. I mean, that chat we had today briefly, mate, in the Discord, there's generally, when you're first starting out with an airbrush, there's two main problems come up. One is you never thin the paints enough. Even when you thin them down and you thin them much thinner than you would for painting with a brush, sometimes it's still not thin enough. So you get some problems because of that. And because the paint is too thick, I think you ease back really gently on the needle, not knowing really what to expect. And sometimes what happens is that as the paint comes through, because you're not pulling it back far enough, the airflow actually dries the paint on the tip. You get what's called a dry tip. Don't laugh. And the paint builds up just on the end of the needle. Then because it wasn't thick enough and you weren't letting enough kind of paint flowing through, it blocks up and it doesn't get cleaned out properly. So I think when you're first getting into airbrushing, you're either fighting getting the viscosity right and then having to clean it more frequently. It's frustrating. Loads of people kind of give up. Start with just putting water in. Honestly, put some water in your airbrush, just blow it through and see how it performs. Just blow it onto a sponge or a cloth or some tissue or something and see how it performs. See how you get that kind of band of, like, sort of a V shape, if you like, of paint coming out, that cone shape coming out of the end. Once you know what you're expecting, it kind of gives you a bit more confidence. But yeah, you definitely need to thin paints down more than you would realise. Even if you buy airbrush specific paints, I always go by eye, and after doing it for a while, you just get used to it. You know what's right. But you have to. It's hard watching it on a video. You can't see how thick or how thin something is. And when people say skimmed milk, screw those people. Don't ever take notice of that. Just thin it down. You're far better off thinning it too much and finding that it kind of sprays everywhere and it's watery, and then thickening it back up, because you'll do less blockages through your airbrush doing it that way. That was a bit of a rant there about airbrushing. Christian saying no painting for him. He's got to keep an eye on these retro bits. Christian, you're a god among men. Thank you very much. Simon Tuckley's building these Warcry Nurgle Rotbringers tonight. Good, nice to see you in, mate. Jeff Higgins in as well says, good day. Celebrating an organisation of our new president. Of course, that's today. It's been all over the news. That's all that's been on the news, which has been a welcome break from what's normally all over the news. Where else are we at? Scott's saying my Dreamer core sets arrived, including Lord Chompy Bits. Beautiful model, mate. Peter says the unboxing is a lie. You said it didn't come in a box. I didn't say it was an unboxing either, to be fair. Well, it did come in a box. It just didn't come in the box it came with. It came in a big cardboard box with loads of other stuff. Screaming down. Vijay says, After Effects, both the bane and boon of my life, the pleasure and pain. It's one of those things, mate, that I've always wanted to learn more about. But it's also one of those things where I could end up going down a rabbit hole and spending more time learning how to do stuff and less time actually creating stuff. But today I just thought I wanted to try something different. I wanted to show both sides of the Malifaux card, and I wondered how hard it was to animate it to flip over, and I managed to work it out with the help of a few YouTube tutorials. So now that's one more feather in my cap. I know how to do that for future ones, and it was surprisingly simple. Scrolling down. Peter Nicholas, good evening, mate. Stu saying good evening. Is it Wednesday already? It is, mate. I know the week's going fast. Lord Maiden says, sounds like you don't drop your models. I had a spear snap, a butcher's chopper blade, and a fireball snap. I don't drop them very often, I'll be honest. And in my hobby room, I've got a carpet down as well. So if it does drop on here, it tends to be nice and soft. So it's not too bad. Peter says, I only ever snap my hobby blades. I did once drop a scalpel. I kind of knocked it and it fell, and it dropped right between my legs and stuck into the chair. Could have been very dangerous. A couple of inches in any direction, I think it would have been damaging. Scott says, let's see your Deadpool, Andy. I've got as far with Deadpool, mate, as you saw in the last stream. I've not been painting for myself, to be fair, recently, but there we go. That's as far as we got last time. I'll show, actually, to tell you what we'll do. If I move some of this stuff off my desk, I'll show you it under the main screen. This was as far as I got. I think this was on the 10,000 subscriber stream, wasn't it? This was as far as I got. And to be honest, I've done hardly any painting the last few weeks. I painted these Malifaux models last week on the stream, and that's as far as I got. I haven't painted any more since then. I've been too busy actually making videos, and I'll talk about that because I've been doing a lot of stuff in the background, building up to kind of future content and stuff. So we'll chat about that as the night goes on. But yeah, Deadpool, we might crack on with that tonight if I finish these Malifaux ones. Scott said he's just started his tonight. Oh, awesome, mate. Stu saying, yeah, agreed. Skimmed milk my arse, yeah. Skimmed milk? Who drinks skimmed milk? Barry Kleiber, howdy to you, sir. Hope you're well. John says, that's why I'm trying to get used to the consistency. I've got an airbrush paint with some flow improved helping. Definitely keen to stick with it. It's going to be a great tool. I love it, mate. I mean, I'm going to do a video at some point about... So, I mean, this airbrush, this one is a Harder and Steinbeck Evolution, which is a really, really nice airbrush. But they're about 120, 130 quid just for the airbrush on its own. So I'm going to do a comparison video at some point of like, why would you ever spend more as opposed to these kind of cheap 10, 15 quid sort of mass-produced Chinese ones? Why would you ever spend more money? So I'm going to do a video on that in the future. But I love airbrushing. I love the way you can get like blends on it. I just love, like, I actually enjoy priming models and putting that zenith and highlight on. There's just something quite kind of relaxing about it. I quite enjoy it. Peter says, okay, I'll give you a pass on that one. Scott says, I'm further on than you. Then you definitely, mate. Honestly, I've not really had time for any painting because generally what I've been doing is like live streaming 2 nights a week. I've been trying to have weekends off, and I'm doing a bit of DIY at home. So that kind of like the weekend was taken up with, I was literally moving stuff out of the garage to put into the loft. We're going to do some work in the garage and kind of turn it into like a family room type thing. So I've got like a lot of work going with that. We're decorating my little boy's bedroom. So weekends have been kind of DIYing and stuff like that, and sitting down watching movies with Mrs. BlackJack. And during the week, like I say, streaming 2 nights a week. And during the days, writing, recording, filming, doing voiceovers, cranking out videos. So yeah, painting's been on the back seat recently, but we'll get there. And I'll talk more about why I'm kind of getting this Malifaux stuff finished as the night goes on. Where was this up to? Yeah, Simon saying, airbrushing is a skill I'm trying to learn at the moment, but think I've got some way to go, but makes terrain painting quick and easy. I think it's a lot of it's psychological. I think people tell you that it's hard. I'm not saying it's not difficult because people do. The problem is nobody's showing you. If you could sit down here next to me, I could have you doing it in 5 minutes. I could show you exactly what to do. But it's really difficult to show it on camera to kind of show the consistency of what paint needs to be. I'll try my best to try and do something because obviously that airbrush video that I did's done something like 220,000 views now or something. So I'm getting a lot of questions about like, how do I do this? How do I do that? So I will be doing more airbrushing videos, obviously, because there's a lot of people interested in having those questions answered. And I want to come at it from a point of view is I'm not an expert. Like, it's not like I've been doing this for 15 years and I can paint kind of like fancy stuff. I know the basics. I know enough to make sure that I don't get blockages. I know how to clean my airbrush down properly. I know the viscosity to get the paint to. I know what happens if I turn the air pressure up and down. I know the difference between a cheap airbrush and an expensive airbrush. I know the basics. I know enough to be dangerous, as they say. But hopefully I can then show you kind of those kind of beginner basics as opposed to this is how you get really sort of high kind of blends and stuff. I love it saying he lost the fireball, but hope to find it soon. Peter saying the chances of the blade hitting anything fragile between my legs is very slight indeed. You don't want a scalpel blade, mate, to go like through like a main artery in your leg, that's for sure, or anywhere else for that. Yukim saying he's going to paint his cycle helmet one day using an airbrush and colour shift paint. Nice one, mate. VG saying he's hitting the Chaos Blitzball team with a second coat of Wrathbone before I do the skin. Nice. John says I'm lactose intolerant. How does the consistency compare to soya milk? I've got some oat milk in the fridge, mate. I'll try and compare it tomorrow. Regis is thinking of doing dark skin with a mix of Fire Slayer Fresh and a touch of Wildwood. Wildwood's, I seem to remember Wildwood being really quite dark, mate. It'd be interesting to see how that turns out. Andrew says, when I was young, between 4 and 12, all I drank was skimmed milk. I didn't like juice, too sour, or soda too fizzy. I used to drink 4 gallons a week. To this day, never broken a bone. I'm not 300 pounds. I love milk. I would quite happily drink milk for like every sort of drink of the day. I frequently drink like pints of milk. I love milk, but semi-skimmed. I wouldn't go full skimmed. Greetings, James Arm. Hello to you, mate. Andrew Fairbanks is saying, don't worry, I'm here. John Estel saying, Zenithal highlighting. Yes. James is, Tony Boulaiden, good evening to you, mate. James is he's popping in to say hi. He's wrapping up at work and then taking the little one snowboarding. Look forward to catching up later. Catch you later, mate. Warwick Dogedge says, airbrushing intimidates people because you can see them amazingly painted minis out there with blends and everything, and you think, I'm just starting, how would I ever get to that point? And don't try it. It's funny, it's like people are a bit like that with brushes though. Like when you see these kind of like award-winning painters, it's quite demoralising, and I think airbrushing can give that same opinion as well. But honestly, it's once you can get over that initial hurdle, that entry point of just honestly getting the paint the right consistency is 99% of beginner problems, honestly. And if I can come up with a good way to show that on screen, maybe I show it by kind of thinning it down too much and then making it too thick and showing you that kind of like, here's the sweet spot in the middle. Because I can't say you put 50% of this in it, like a one-to-one mix. I can't say it's a one-to-one mix because it completely depends on what kind of thinner you're using. It depends on if you're using thinners or water. It depends on what kind of paint you're using. It depends on what colour you're using, because different pigments in different colours. So when people say, how much do I thin it down by, you can't really give like a concrete answer. It becomes a point where you just know that it's right. And you know straight away as well when you're trying to spray it. Like, for example, so what I've got is, let me just show you some stuff here. I've got these. These are the two main primers that I use for priming minis. I've got, what's this one? Vallejo Black, just normal black primer. And I've got Vallejo Ghost Grey. It's a really nice light grey. What I do is, I've then got an old bottle, and what I do is I thin it down to the right consistency in this old bottle, so that I know for a fact that when I'm painting, if I've got loads to do, I don't have to keep sort of thinning down a little bit at a time. I thin it down in another bottle, and this is the one I use for priming. That one then basically fills this one up when it's empty again. But between these two, I find the grey one seems to go really quite rubbery. It's got a completely different consistency to the black one. The black one always goes on fine. The grey one, I find that if you leave it standing around for a little bit too long, it seems to get like a skin on it, and it's almost rubbery. So it just, like, even with the same manufacturer, like they're different colours and stuff are completely different. And then obviously I've got things like, if I've got some lying around in here, I've got some like Model Air paints from Vallejo as well. But then I use my GW stuff 90% of the time. I bought them when I first started kind of airbrushing and found I still needed to thin them down, so I might as well use what I've got. Simon Tuckley says, Vijay says, I know enough to be dangerous. Yeah, it's just like, I know enough to get myself in trouble. It's not one of those things where I don't know enough, so I'm not going to give it a try. It's like, I know enough to be dangerous. Simon says he's been looking at Kings of War a lot today. Which would you say is better, Kings of War or Vanguard? Personally speaking, mate, I think Kings of War is the better game. I think it's easier to learn. I think it's easier to play. I think they take about the same amount of time to play. The difference being, and this depends purely on your personal kind of circumstances, Kings of War's played on a big 6x4, Vanguard's played on a 3x3. Kings of War, you need to paint a lot of models. Vanguard, you need to paint about kind of 10 or 13 models. But they're both really, really good games. I just prefer Kings of War, and I think Kings of War is an easier game to learn. I think there's a lot of tactics in it, but it seemed to. I always thought it was going to be overly complex after years of seeing Warhammer Fantasy being played. It's not like that at all. Honestly, it's such a more straightforward game. Yes. Where are we up to here? Marcus is saying, I just finished my Tomb King Casket of Souls and the 3 minis I'd go on the base. Nice. Busey says, just think of the money saved in the long run, not buying rattle cans. Stick with the airbrush. Honestly, mate, let me just grab a can. I mean, these cans, I bought this when I first got contrast paints to try it. You can hear there's still loads left in it because I think I used it, I think, for... Did I use it for my Ossiarch Bone Reapers? I think I used it specifically because I was doing like a tutorial. They're about £11 or £12 a can, honestly. And then I've bought an airbrush for... Yes, these ones are more expensive, but I bought an airbrush for 30 quid. It's the price of like 2 or 3 cans. If three cans of primer, and you've kind of like, it's paid for itself kind of thing. Yeah, definitely stick with it. Where did that one go? Paul Immons says milk. Yeah, it's what Ian Rush drinks. If you don't drink it, you'll only be good enough to play for Accurate and Stanley. That's definitely that's definitely a UK based joke. Simon says milkshakes are my weakness. I love milkshakes, mate. I love milkshakes. Bobby Clark saying 50% of my airbrushing is with cheap old China one. They're super handy. I use them for the bulk of it. If I'm doing any kind of terrain stuff, and if there's nothing too kind of like I have to be too neat about it. If I'm just literally just layering it on kind of thing. Every single time I'll just use that one. Saves me cleaning down my good one too much. Scott says, do you still thin the Vallejo air paints? Yeah, I still thin them a little bit, mate, as well. I still think they're too thick for what I like to paint at. Maybe I paint at a lower pressure than some people. I painted about 25 psi. But yeah, maybe 1 week on a live stream we'll do it, and like on a hobby hangout, I'll try and do a bit of a kind of airbrushing tutorial. I think the microphone's kind of good enough to not pick up the background noise too much. So yeah, I think we could do. Peter says, you ever tried the Citadel air paints? I haven't made it, and the reason I haven't tried them is because they're the same colour as the normal Citadel paints. They're the same price as the Citadel paints, and I'll get more paint out of a normal pot because I'll thin it down. So yeah, for me it's false economy. I still find that. Ed saying, well, at least my chosen primer is decent. Yeah. Busey saying, I think the polyurethane that makes them a bit rubber-like, but I love those primers. They can get up your nose a bit, but I find the grey more stinky than the black. I use an extraction unit here, which I'll get to at some point. Actually, let me just. I wonder if I can. If I turn this one around, can you see my extraction unit? There. Let me go. The joys of technology, yeah. So this is the extraction unit that everybody buys who buys one. The filter at the back is meant to be blue. Obviously there's some overspray on there. I've replaced the filters a few times on those. You can kind of wash them through, but eventually they do kind of get bunged up, but they're about a £5 to replace. It's actually foldable, so these sides fold in, it can all fold down, but I just leave mine up all the time. But I don't use the hose on the back. I've tested it for years with bits of paper like against the wall to see if any paint comes through, but it's strong enough that it pulls away the fumes, it pulls away the kind of overspray, as you can see, because it's on the filter, and as you can also see, it's not really on the sides, which is kind of proof really of that fact that the filter's pulling it away. And yeah, there's never kind of been anything gone through the back, so I basically just I don't use the hose and adapter and stuff that comes with it. I literally just use that one. So yeah, there you go. Christian says, I see your D&D dice set. Ah, yes, tucked away there, mate. That's because I was doing a bit of tidying up and I found them in the box. So yeah, let me just tighten that back up again. Andrew saying, don't know enough to be dangerous. Know that you know enough to know that you don't know enough. Yes, I think that's right. Mark is saying, I wanted another airbrush because it allows me to get way better shading much faster since I'm putting together Nighthawk warband. An airbrush makes it easier. I painted, this is the marine that I did as a test with my super cheap airbrush. Let me go to this one. Let me zoom in. So this is done with that super cheap 15 quid airbrush, and what I did was, let me just come down, if you look at it from the bottom you can see the purple, although kind of, I think it's Screamer Pink actually coming up from the bottom. So I literally got the airbrush and just sprayed up over, and then I got Avalon Sunset and sprayed down from the top, so you can see I was very yellow from that way, It's kind of purple from that way, and then you end up with that kind of thing. And then and there's no shading on this. I've not done any highlighting. I've not done any shading. The gun is literally painted. I think I painted it black and then dry brushed it silver. The pouches on the side are just thinned down black. I've put black. I've put black on the backs of the knees. I've put red. I think it's Mephiston red. It might be. I've put it around the sides there, and I think I put corn red onto the chest eagle there. I think I did put a wash over the chest eagle just to pick it out. But this is how I'm going to do it. I've got a video that I'm kind of working on in the background that is purely about speed painting. I'm going to do all of my Indomitus set with that cheap airbrush to this standard. Honestly, I've literally not really picked any details out. I mean, you can see the little thing on the arm. I've not bothered picking it out. It's just, but you know what it is, like an army of those. I'd be happy with that. The basing is the Mars Ready base from Geek Gaming, from the one that Luke Fellows runs. It's much more. It's a bit more ready, I think, actually. And actually, no, it's probably quite realistic. But yeah, the idea is it's just super basic. You don't have to be kind of doing edge highlighting, especially when you're painting armies, and you don't have to have a fancy, expensive airbrush. You know, like that is done with about 3 or 4 different coloured paints and a 15 quid airbrush, and a 30 quid airbrush. Where are we up to? Scott saying, Accurate and Stanley, you were there. Exactly. VJ says, if you're going to do a thin and paint for airbrush video, could I recommend doing a how to thin potted Rathbone for priming with an airbrush? Do I have any potted Rathbone? I do have Rathbone here. So yes, I will do, mate. I will use that one. Although, yeah, I'll definitely include it. Sometimes the lighter colours don't show up so well. I'll have to get like a black background so it stands out. I think the video would hit and save people money. I agree, mate. Yeah, because it's the same stuff, isn't it? It's the same stuff. Marcus said, I turned lactose intolerant after I turned 23, so no milk for me. It's weird it happened like kind of like later in life, isn't it? Peter says, I love lactose, but I'm intolerant generally. And Stu says, I was using Vallejo primer, but recently switched to Badger. Somebody in the chat today was talking about Badger. I think it was Rob Brown, I think, saying he uses Badger and he doesn't need to thin it, it just goes straight in. Peter said, any suggestion on the skin colour for Vasquez from Aliens? I've got Vallejo Elf Skin Tone, Bugman's Glow, Old Citadel coloured bronze flesh, and old dark flesh. I would probably go with Bugman's Glow and then try a little bit of a kind of like a wash over top of it and then maybe pick out a few highlights. And Christian saying the Badger Styroizer, I can't even pronounce it, is an amazing primer. Nice. Well, anyway, what time is it now? Half an hour in. I've not even picked up a paintbrush yet. Right, let's crack on then. So, I'm literally going to do these pretty damn quickly. I'm just deciding which colour contrast paint to put on the bases. I don't know whether to go with a Gore-Grunt of Fur. Do I want to go with Wildwood? I'm going to probably dry brush them afterwards anyway, so I'm not too worried about them being darker. Let's go. Do I want to go? Sligo Brown's pretty dark, isn't it? That's probably too dark. Although it might balance it out. Decisions. No, let's go with Gore-Grunt of Fur, I think. That's a bit more orangey. I'll tell you what, we'll put a little bit on we'll get a little test piece. What will I use? Let's see if I've got something handy I can use just to put a piece on. I think I might have some primed stuff in here. Oh, I'll just try a bit on my wet palette and see what kind of brown it is. So, Robin, sounds like another great video to look forward to. Maybe want to nudge me to push me over. I just have no space for it. That's why the little battery powered one, mate. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough. I don't know how long it's going to last. It's been good so far, but honestly, it takes up absolutely no space. Right, let's actually, we're going to do the base. We'll leave that one zoomed in a bit more. Let's get sorted with this. Barry says, I was in my early 20s when I developed the lactose intolerance. Wow. Marcus says, you went fuzzy for a second, but the video fixed itself. Maybe just sometimes it's when it's streaming, mate, it sometimes drops the quality and then picks up again. It's sometimes more to do with the connection at your end. Because it tells me here if I've dropped any frames or anything like that, and nothing's happened at this end. People say I would go darker skin tone if she's Mexican origin. I'm just thinking, like, if you start off with Bugman's and darken it down, as opposed to kind of starting with a darker skin tone and trying to lighten it up. That's how I would do it, but I could be wrong. The touch of green to Bugman's to get the Latino tone. Peter Stockdale says, evening all. Sorry I missed the start tonight. Never apologise, mate. Always good to see you here. Let me get my dipping brush. The brush I use to just slot onto my wet palette. Let's just put a little bit on and try it out before we lather it on. Barry says, been using BlackJack airbrushes for years. I have 2 old double action ones and 2 newer ones. Quality construction, readily available parts. Plus they're located about 15 minutes from my house. That definitely helps me. A lot of people have BlackJack ones. Isn't it BlackJack that always have the they have their sale on once a year or whatever? I quite like is it Infinity ones as well? They're okay. But yeah, the harder in Steinbeck one I've got, I've been happy with. It's really, actually, let me just show you before we get on painting the minis. One of the reasons I like this one, and I can't comment on other ones because I haven't seen like lots of other ones, is, let me just come on, zoom into this, folks. So this is just kind of like a nozzle protector. If you leave, so basically if I drop it, if I drop it, it's not going to hurt the needle because this bit's basically protecting it. But it lets me see. It lets me see that. Actually, let me put that. Let me put that there, and then it won't focus on the paints. So basically, yeah. So you can see when you're getting paint on the tip. You know, I was talking about dry tip. Don't laugh. Yeah. So basically, you can still see it. I tend to take it off completely when I'm painting. Now it's focusing on the army painter stuff, so that I can see it and basically just pull it off and clean it. However, when you come to strip it down, the end bit screws off, and the nozzle bit doesn't screw out. It pulls out into a separate piece, so it's dead easy to get in and clean it. There's no kind of threat of over tightening it and damaging it. And then obviously the pin there, the needle itself comes through from the back, so you can just put that back onto there, screw it in. It is super easy to strip down and clean. The cup obviously comes off, so you can see in there and make sure you can get in, make sure it's nice and clean. Just screw that back on, and then you can actually, if you screw the end bit off, you can obviously just adjust the needle in there as well, so it's pushed forward, and then tighten that up so that it's adjusting on there. And it also strips down so that if you screw the whole back part off, it actually pulls the whole needle out without you having to adjust the back. And actually what's also quite clever about this one is the trigger itself. You can see the trigger's shaped, so if you're right-handed, it kind of rests on your finger like that. You can take this out and spin it around if you're left-handed, and have the raised part on the other side if you're left-handed. So I mean, that might not be a kind of selling point for most people, but it's just a super nice, nicely made, good high quality. Oops, just gonna cock it up, put it all back together now. Let me just grab that back in there. And also one of the things I've talked about in the past as well. Oops, let me just, I'm trying to do 10 things at once. Oh, this is what happens when you try and do things on camera, isn't it? Everybody's watching. There we go. One thing I've noticed as well is We talk about double action and single action airbrushes. Obviously, double action means airflow by pressing up and down, and paint flow by pulling backwards and forwards. That's double action. Single action generally, although everybody keeps telling me I'm wrong, I see single action airbrushes as just literally backwards and forwards on the trigger. The air is constantly flowing. With the cheaper airbrush, I tend to find I don't have a lot of control over the... It's almost like an on-off switch. I can't really control the airflow on that because I just think the mechanism quality is probably not as good. Where with the better quality one, I find that I've got much more control over the actual airflow there. But and Tony Bouvliden gave a good tip last week. If you put your thumb underneath it, you give a bit of resistance, and it actually sort of helps you with a bit more control as well. So anyway. Nothing at all to do with what I'm painting tonight, but just while we're chatting airbrushes, let's get back to actually doing what I was going to do and painting some bloody models. Right. Let's put a little bit of contrast medium in there as well. Thin it down a touch. Come on, that's it, focus. Where are we up to? Spider Lord saying he's got an airbrush I don't use. Much shame. I think a lot of people get into that state, mate. They basically get to a position where it's like they're having loads of problems and they just give up. Or if they haven't got a permanent area set up, like I'm dead fortunate to have the space here. If you don't have a permanent area set up, that constantly kind of like breaking it down and setting it back up again just gets frustrating, I think, for people. So right, let's get some of this onto here. Help if I got it on camera. Right, now this is a bit lighter than I probably wanted, but that's not a problem. We'll just do a few coats of it. We'll just do this for the wood, because I'm probably gonna I might wash it over with a wash just to darken it down in the recesses. And then I'll very lightly dry brush it just to bring out some of the grain again. But yeah, this is not too hard. This is a nice simple job for tonight. Just get on there and get that on. We'll do the bits of green on here as well. There's stuff around here like kind of moss and grass and stuff. Anybody wondering, these bases are the ones that I bought from Micro Art Studios. The range is just called Wood, if anybody's looking for them. I picked these up from a seller on eBay, just basically a little small hobby shop that has had some bits and pieces for sale. So I picked them up from there, but obviously you can pick them up from Micro Art Studios direct as well. I think they're in Poland, so our shipping might be cheaper if you can find like an eBay seller or something like that. Right, let's have a little chat starting to pick up again there while I've been rambling about airbrushes. Stuart Hayes is saying, Christian and Stuart is I was going to buy the full set of miniature paints, but they've doubled in price. I'm not sure what paints we're talking about there. We're talking about the Badger ones. Bobby Clark says, I'm putting food colouring through my airbrush to paint the top of my girlfriend's birthday cake. Plan to paint Mars on the icing. Could turn out like crap Blue Peter picture. I need to see a picture of that, mate. Get that on your Instagram once you're done, fella. I want to see that. But yeah, you can certainly use airbrushes for kind of food and stuff like that. Use them for makeup and all sorts of things. I saw a review, the little battery powered one that I did a review on. Somebody else had done a review online, but he was a barber and he was using it for. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to. Put a piece of paper there because I'm sick to death of it focusing. I need to get like a nice background, but all my paints are there. I've been thinking about taking the paint rack off, rising it up, and just getting like a nice kind of like. Because what you do is you basically get like an out of focus background, so the camera can never focus on it. So it doesn't even try to. It always just focuses on the Mini instead. But that's just another step of improving stuff. I'll get there a bit at a time. I'm sure you don't come from my painting skills anyway, so don't worry about it. Simon says, don't forget to hit that like. That would be very nice, folks. We got 52 people in. Of course, it went down to 50 while I said that. It says 53 people, sorry. We've got 27 likes. There's the likes going back up. Thank you very much, folks. It's massively appreciated. I mean, obviously, I would only ever say hit the like button if you're liking the videos. However, just kind of, it does actually, it's surprising what difference it makes. When YouTube see people interacting with the video, be that through comments, through liking it, through sharing it, all that kind of stuff, it's surprising the difference it makes. So yeah, it's hugely appreciated. Even if you don't like it, I'd rather you disliked it than didn't do anything. Because even that helps. Let's get these bits on. I'm not being particularly careful with this. As you can see, it's not really losing. It's not really kind of being too patchy or anything like that either. It's mainly because, let me just get a bit light down there a little bit more. Mainly because I've thinned it down slightly. I'll tell you what you can see on these bases, mind. You see the ridges on there. They've definitely been 3D printed originally, and then obviously resin cast from a 3D print. You'll not notice it once I kind of put paint the brim of the base, but I think it's because I've zenithal primed it. It's kind of picking up on the high spots of the ridging. But you can't see any of it on the actual base itself. It's just on that kind of curved edge to it. Right, I think that's, yeah, I'm happy with that, how it's soaking in and drying. It's giving a little bit of contrast to the browns on the model. So 1 down, 6 to go. Where else are we up to? Spiderlord saying, no worries, something nice and dull like Death Corp drab would work. That's a browny green anyway. Scott saying I have an Iowata airbrush. That might be what I'm thinking of, mate, Iowata one, when I was talking about Infinity. I think Iowata Infinity is one of the models, I think. I think it was an Iowata one I might have been considering buying actually before I got the Harder and Steinbeck one. I got a good deal on it, so that was what convinced me, to be fair. I mean, when it comes to things like the nozzle size, like the needle size and stuff, I'm sure there's a lot more kind of there's a lot of people who have a lot more kind of knowledge than me. I've never like replaced needle sizes to do different jobs and stuff like that, because I've never felt the need to. Like I've never models like this. I'm never going to try and paint the skin with an airbrush, or try and paint the trousers with an airbrush. When I'm doing kind of big blocked areas like the marines and things, yeah, it's different kettle of fish completely. But right. Vijay saying that trigger top looks great. The flat top of my cheapie hurts my finger after a while. I'll be honest, mate. Actually, it honestly does make a difference. I mean, is it worth spending like £100 more on an airbrush just for that trigger? Probably not. But it does make a difference. It's got a nice weight to it as well. It feels balanced. It doesn't feel like all the weight's at the front where the cup is or anything like that. It's just got a nice balance to it. So, but it's definitely subjective. It's like one of those things. I mean, like that because that video was done so well, it's obviously going to attract some negative comments as well as some positive ones. Some of them not particularly very nice. We won't go into those ones, but some of them basically like saying like absolute bullshit. Basically, you know, you're obviously paid to say that kind of stuff and things. You must be selling them. Somebody accused me of that. I was selling the airbrushes, and that was why I was making a positive review about them. But there were a lot of views where people, a lot of comments as well, where people were saying you can't airbrush with a cheap airbrush. It's false economy. You should just go and spend £400 on a really good one and have done with it, kind of thing. And I just thought it's madness, which is why I'm doing that video really, to kind of paint my Indomitus Marines. It's really just to show one, Marines, because it'll get more views because it's Marines. Of course it will. Two, because I've still got to get them painted. And three, because I want to prove those folks wrong. Because I know for a fact I can do it, because I've just showed you the sample model I did, so I know it's possible. So yeah, we'll get to that one in the next week or so. Where are we up to? Spyload said he's been slapping contrast paints on Aeronautica Avengers today. I quite fancy painting some of those Aeronautica ships at some point. I'm not sure about the game. I've not played the game. I don't know if I ever would, especially sort of lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't mind just painting up some of the ships for a bit of a change. You call them ships, planes, I suppose. Stu says the Christian's bought all his budget airbrushes off Steve at Barwell. The price of the miniatures doubled. I'm currently using Vallejo. Oops, that's it. And Army Painter. Ed's saying, yeah, the only place you can paint is a dining room table. Yeah, I can imagine, mate, it gets a bit frustrating and stuff. What I would say was that little 30 quid battery powered one is ideal if you haven't got somewhere that you've got a permanent setup. And I specifically, when I did the video, I sprayed it like on my desk here with a bit of paper behind it to catch any overspray. Basically just to kind of to show that it is still possible. I didn't use my extractor hood or anything like that, just to show that you don't need it. It's obviously nice if you have got it, but I think when you're at the point of buying things like extractor hoods and stuff like that, I mean they're not an absolute fortune. They're about like sort of like 60 quid or something like that. But it's like it's more expensive. It's 60 quid that you're not spending on your games or your models or your paints and stuff. So you have that's why I kind of always recommend kind of with getting a cheap one to start with. If you're on the fence, like don't go and spend 400 or 500 quid just to find out if you're going to enjoy it. Spend 30 quid if you really like it and you want to spend more. You know, you've got a spare brush, you've got a spare airbrush, you've got a backup compressor, you've got one you could kind of a portable one if you're on holiday or something and you want to take some bits with you, like off to like a caravan or something like that. You've got like a little portable one. Right, another one down. Scott said Wildwood probably would have been a better choice for the base. Yeah, I find Wildwood is really dark. That's all, mate. The only problem with it, I think that's Wildwood, that really dark brown compared to that. So, and I think this might be the Gore Grunter fur rather. So if this one looks too much the same, I'll probably end up just like darkening this one down a bit more. I don't want the dog to look like he's made of wood. Yeah, I think it's going to be roughly the same colour, but it won't by the end, by the time it's had a bit of dry brush and lightened it up and stuff. Also, it's going to have, I'll do black around the rim as well, so that will naturally make it look darker. Your eye gets drawn to the light bits and it makes the paint look lighter than it actually is. Peter Nicholas says he's happy he decided to enter the Ace of Base challenge. That's because that's picking up on those ones. The worst, where was it? The worst that can happen is I'll have a usable command identify blue angels. Exactly. That's the whole point of it, mate. I mean, I'm not trying to kind of put pressure on people to kind of like to paint like to a standard that's not attainable. It was basically sort of, it was more psychosomatic, really, just a case of like, you know, give you a reason to get out the brushes. It's the start of the year. People are like a bit down in the dumps at the minute, not playing games. Maybe he's feeling a little bit like flat. It was purely just to get people painting again, give them an excuse to get the brushes out, and that's why it was a bit of a wide open one for the start of the year. It wasn't anything game specific. It wasn't too like sort of restrictive. The idea was just to get people painting, and it appears to be doing the trick. Sorry, folks. It appears to be doing the trick of getting some really, really good entries for those that haven't seen it, please check out the Facebook group or check out my Twitter feed. Christian just shared his today. My God, absolutely fantastic piece of work, mate. Definitely making me want to start painting some dioramas when I've got a bit more time on my hands. Because I feel at the minute I'm talking about having like time on my hands. Obviously, like I work for myself, I can make myself time, but I'm in a bit of a groove at the minute, like sort of creativity wise. I feel like I've got like a load of things I can be working on. I'm trying new stuff, which is really exciting. Like I'm in a good place when it comes to creating stuff. The little one's gone back to nursery now as well, so he's not home from nursery during the day, which means I can actually sort of work and do my job. So free time is a little bit it's my free time is going into work because that's what I'm enjoying doing. So yeah, but at some point I will want a bit of a break, so I'll get back into I'll maybe do something with diorama. If I can turn it into making a bit of content as well, it's never a bad thing. Two birds, one stone kind of thing. Barry saying, when was the last day for the base challenge? I think it's next Sunday, mate. Is it the 20? Is that the 23rd? What's the day? 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 25th, mate. 25th is Sunday. It's the last day, because then I'll show them all off on Monday's live stream. There's a bit of a community what's it called? A community showcase type thing again, like we did with the last. What was it for? The last one? I can't even remember what it was for. It was just to show them off, I think, wasn't it? Oh, it was about what you'd been painting during lockdown and stuff, wasn't it? Yeah, so we'll do a bit of a community showcase on Monday. Show off what everybody's been entering into the Ace of Base competition. I was going to say there's some fantastic entries. They're all fantastic entries. And then you can see that people have really kind of just tried to do a little bit more than they normally would, which was the point really, just to try and do something a bit different. So yeah, we'll show them off, and then if you've entered, your name will go into a list. We'll do a random number draw. We'll pick a winner, and then I'll send you something out in the post. It was more, I mean, it's not going to be anything too fancy, don't get excited. It was more about just a little bit of added encouragement for the start of the year, to give folks something to encourage them to enter. So if they were on the fence about it, then oh well, there's a little prize. I might as well kind of give it a go. Prizes on YouTube and stuff are always a bit of a funny one. I mean, I'm giving away £100 worth of kind of Mantic Mega Army, and I'm always surprised with how few people enter competitions. If you ever see any competitions on YouTube, always enter them, because you'll be really surprised how few people actually enter. I remember years ago I had a friend who worked for a newspaper, like a community kind of reporter type thing, and they once rang me and said, I need you to enter this competition. Nobody's entered and we need to draw the prize in an hour, but nobody's entered. And the prize wasn't anything kind of major. It was like tickets to see like a show at a local theatre or something like that, but nobody entered. I had another friend who used to work for Mars, Mars, like Mars Bar and stuff like that, like the chocolate manufacturer, and they were giving away 2 tickets to the World Cup, because they sponsored the England team at the time. They were giving away 2 tickets, full expenses paid trip to the World Cup. Nobody entered. I think people just think that they always have this kind of idea of, oh, I never win, it'll never be me, so I won't bother. So you until you kind of see it from the other side, if you're running a competition, it always surprises me how few people actually enter competitions. It's like when like when vouchers go out and stuff like that, like to redeem, get like money off coupons and stuff. Companies when they do them only ever kind of budget for about maximum 3% of those coupons ever to be redeemed. And generally what they do is they have an insurance policy that they take out, and there's companies who basically insure against it. So what they say is, we insure, we will pay you X number of pounds, insurance company, on the basis that only a maximum of 5% of these get redeemed. And then if for some weird instance it goes nuts and 100% of people redeem them, and the company would have lost a fortune with all those vouchers getting used, basically the insurance covers it, because they generally know if every single voucher that got redeemed, it would cost the companies an absolute fortune, but they never do, and that's all taken into account. Anyway, completely random off there. Different gear TV scene, airbrush hairline or sideburns maybe. I think it was like kind of beard lines, mate. It was like people get like airbrushed, like really sort of defined beard lines and stuff like that on. So I think you gotta be one of the cool kids for that kind of stuff. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Speaking of beards, I apologise if mine's looking a bit raggy at the minute. I'm going through that phase of just not doing anything with it to let it grow. So it's kind of going a little bit like Wild Man of Borneo at the minute. And until it gets a bit longer, I'm going to get some kind of flyaway bits and pieces. I try to kind of put a bit of wax on it normally and kind of tame it down a little bit while it's growing, but I forgot before the live stream. Don't tell anyone. 24th, I think. Yeah, if it's the 24th, 25th, whatever day it is, it's definitely Sunday, mate. As long as they're in by Sunday, that'll do me, because then on Monday I'll pull them all together, take all the photographs out of the emails, and put them into a file so I can share them on Monday night. Lord Min said, "Come for your voice, your opinion, your topics, your skills, and everyone else." Do you know what it is? Like when it comes to setting up for a Wednesday live stream, like a Wednesday hobby hangout, I always think, oh, what am I going to paint tonight? Like, it feels like it should be something like worth clicking for, if you like, because that's how YouTube works. But when it comes down to it, 90% of the time, I just, what do I want to paint? That's why these live streams started. It was a case of, well, I need to paint stuff for the content that I'm making. So if I'm sitting here for like 2 or 3 hours painting, I might as well do it as a live stream. We can all sit and do it together. Started doing them during the first ever lockdown. Something tells me that we'll be doing these live streams long after lockdowns are a distant memory. Let's hope they are. ER910, good evening to you, mate. Simon Tuckley says, got to go. We'll watch a film with the missus. Catch up with the video tomorrow. Take care, mate. Hope you enjoy your movie night. Flying Mammal, good evening, Flying Mammal. How are you doing? Nice to see you in. Are you still working on an Acer Base challenge, or have you is it on the back burner at the moment? I know you were working on something. I'll tell you what, folks, look at the difference between those two. That's because I put contrast medium into this one, the Lord Maiden one, and I forgot to keep adding it in when I was topping it up. It's much more glossy without the contrast medium. I mean, it won't make any difference because I'm going to put a wash over the top of it anyway. Yeah, just interesting. Stu says Infinity is the Harder and Steinbach flagship airbrush. I think somebody else do one as well though. I've got a feeling, is it like a Neo Infinity or something like that? I can't remember now. Anyway. But I must admit, I would love to try a really, really expensive airbrush, purely just to understand, like, not to keep one. I'd love a company to send me one to try, and I'd quite happily send it back, kind of thing, like a demo one. I would love to be able to to compare and contrast and say, actually, like, yeah, the money is well spent. You get what you pay for, kind of thing. Because my gut feeling is there's a point where it's kind of like a law of diminishing returns. That actually what you're paying for is, I mean, you are paying for kind of like R&D and kind of like sort of, but you're paying for marketing as well. Obviously, you're paying for branding. So there's a number of different things you're paying for. But my good feeling from using different types of airbrushes is that there is a point where actually it's definitely the law of diminishing returns, and it ends up becoming that kind of gatekeepery status symbol of, oh well, I airbrush with this £300 airbrush kind of thing. And obviously the ones you see online, the really good painters that are using them, they're not paying for them anywhere. They're being sent them, or they're being sponsored, I would imagine. If you're that good, you want your materials in their hand, don't you? So I'm pretty sure that's the case. Although I beg to differ. I know people like Angel Heraldez, who's obviously famous for his airbrush work, is pretty heavily sponsored by Vallejo and Redgrass Games and a number of different companies. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not paying for his materials. Fiji says, I think about putting some foam padding on top of the trigger, a bit cheaper than £100 in Pacific pesos. I think the problem is if you put any foam on the pad, you'll lose some of the kind of the touch, the feel of it, like the compression. That's the only thing I would say. But I mean, it all depends on how much control you have normally. Like I said, some of the cheaper ones are pretty much like an on-off switch anyway. But the other thing to look at, mate, is you can screw the bottom bit out, and you can actually change the pressure on the trigger. So there's a little spring in the bottom, and if where in the video where I showed where you can screw out the inside to make it single action, if you screw it too tight, it actually becomes quite stiff to press rather. And if you unscrew it, it actually it's not as stiff to press down on. And actually, you might find that you might be able to kind of just loosen that off and not be quite sort of like so much fatigue from longer painting sessions. But yeah, you can definitely do that. I only know that because I once over tightened mine, and it was an absolute nightmare to paint with. Right. So another one down, last one. Where are we up to? Oh, let me scroll back a little bit here. Let me scroll back. Wow, that's jumped well ahead, that one. Let me catch up here. Where the hell did the elders go? My God, that definitely jumped ahead. I need to try and scroll back. Bloody hell, that didn't half jump ahead. That right. VG said, I was thinking about putting some foam pad, and that's where we were. Christian, sharing the link for Patreon. Thank you very much, Christian. Warwick saying, someone that spent £400 on an airbrush and it doesn't matter their skill level isn't going to be happy hearing that someone can paint with a cheap one and it end up looking just fine. They don't like hearing they could have saved money. Do you know what it is, mate? I mean, there's definitely an element of that. There's definitely an element of that. I mean, the thing with the cheaper ones is, are they going to last as long? Like, is it easy to get parts for them if they break down? All that kind of stuff. What's customer service like? I'm sure, like, it pales into insignificance. But if you are just starting out, it's like what I said before. Like, I mean, when I was saying like last week about sort of starting learning to play the guitar, and people sort of saying, well, you need to buy like an £8,000 Les Paul Gibson. Like, you don't need to. Yes, you might not want to buy like the cheapest of cheap kind of like sort of cigar box guitar type things, but sometimes you just need something good enough to get started. Space Ape, good evening, mate. It says, have you ever heard of Dust 1947? I have, mate, yeah. Dust seems to have kind of disappeared a little bit, but yeah, I have heard of it, mate. Busey saying, not naming names, but there was a certain terrain man the other night saying, don't buy cheap China airbrushes. I withheld from commenting, but knew he was wrong. Do you know what it is, mate? People who say cheap Chinese airbrushes are a load of rubbish, right, have probably bought a bad one. And I'm sure the quality control's probably not as good. I'm sure there's a few kind of like bad ones squeak through. And I'm sure there's not consistency. Like, not every cheap airbrush is exactly the same or manufactured to the same standard. So have they had a bad experience? Probably. But you know what it is with the cheap ones? The stuff that tends to go wrong with them is when you first get them, like, things haven't been tightened properly. So I would always recommend the first thing you do when you get one is just strip it down, clean it, and make sure that it's set up correctly. Put it back together. Not only is it a good thing to do to get used to to learning how to strip it down and clean it before you've covered it all in paint and stuff like that, and made your mistakes, because we all do. But it also just makes sure like that you're starting from the correct position. You're starting with something that you know. The needle's clean, the nozzle's clean, there's no sticking parts, nothing's loose. Because I think sometimes what happens is you get some of like the kind of like the connections haven't been tightened up properly, and you end up like losing air or kind of air pressure through them because of it. So yeah, strip it down, give it a clean, put it back together, start there. Check the needle itself. Sometimes with the cheaper ones, the needle's a little bit rough, and you can get some kind of fine grit sandpaper. Even toothpaste does it as well, and just kind of like rub along the needle to take off any bits of burrs or anything like that. And that's 90% of the problems that you'll encounter. I mean, yes, you might come across a one that's kind of been badly made, but just send it back and get another one. I've got 3 cheap Chinese airbrushes now, and I won't complain about it. And compared to the one that I paid over 100 quid for, I have no complaints with those cheap ones. Like, 2 of them came with compressors for 30 quid. For priming stuff, for putting stuff onto big terrain pieces, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. And anybody that says otherwise is either just being a bit of a gatekeeper about it, or they've had a bad experience with an airbrush, with a cheap one, and they haven't like kind of sort of worked through their problems. You can learn a lot from, like, even though you might fight against like a cheap one when you first get it, when you learn how to thin your paints down and all that kind of stuff, and more expensive ones are easier to clean and all those kind of things. Even though you might be fighting against them, you'll learn a lot from doing that. Let me just clean the thing out of my where is it? That's it. Paul Emmons says, for me, the main reason to buy an expensive airbrush is maintenance. I have an Iowa Neo and cheap Chinese knockoff. The Iowa is easy to strip down and clean. Yeah, I would completely agree, mate. It's the biggest difference between my two is definitely the ease of breaking down, cleaning, and putting back together again. I'm not going to damage any nozzles or anything like that. That's definitely the advantage. However, you are paying a premium for that. And actually, if you're just starting out, if you're just giving it a try, you're not sure if it's for you. Like, if you spend £400 on an airbrush and a compressor, you would still have all of the problems about not thinning the paints correctly, not getting it the right consistency, nozzles blocking up, needing to be cleaned more frequently. You'll still have all those problems. Those problems don't magically disappear because you spent more money. But I would completely agree. As I showed with my airbrush there, definitely being able to clean it is one of the massive big advantages. Paul saying you can easily get spares for water. Yeah, I think the other side of it is, the flip side of it, if you're just buying a cheap one, you can still buy nozzles and needles really cheaply because there's so many kind of mass produced the same. And the other one is actually sometimes it's just as cheap to buy another cheap airbrush, like 15 quid or something like that. You can pick them up for. So sometimes, like things like O-rings and what they're called, like the needles and stuff, the nozzles, it's sometimes just as easy to replace the airbrush. Ed says aeronautica planes look great, but I had a demo at my local GW and dear God, it's bad compared to X-Wing. Is it really, mate? Like I say, I've saw the kind of the Becca Scott videos online and stuff, but I've got no idea what the game actually plays like. Right, we're going to go over these with a liquid talent that is Agrax wash, just to get some depth into the recesses, and then once they're dry, we're going to we'll dry brush it back up again around the tops to get the grain some kind of variance in it. Scott says, well, that's certain to him on Sunday night. Ed says, I have the same hood as you. It's great, but it's just another thing I have to get out so I can do work. Yeah, like I say, mate, I appreciate kind of how fortunate I am to have a dedicated space like set up like this. Obviously, for things like my live streams and things, if I don't think I could do them if I didn't have like a dedicated hobby space and things like that. And obviously now that this is my full-time job, it's critical to have the space to do it. So would I like more space? Absolutely. If the channel ever grew to a point where like it was making some kind of good money, I'd potentially even look at like maybe hiring a space or something like that, you know, like a little unit somewhere with a bit, so I've got a bit more space, and then I can start to do sort of bigger projects and things. But that's a bit of a wish list, like well down the line. At the minute, my spare bedroom here does kind of 85% of what I need. It just makes it a bit more. I've got to be super tidy. I've got to be super organised, and little tricks like buying two of things. So, for example, the camera that you can see that's looking at me here, I've bought like an extra power supply and an extra HDMI cable that goes all the way back to my PC. So I'm not keep pulling cables around when I go do the live stream. I literally unconnect the camera from this tripod, take the battery pack out, take the HDMI lead out, and then put it on the tripod over there where there's another power pack and another HDMI lead. I mean, those are the kind of things that people don't necessarily see and actually kind of add up. Like power packs are like 30 quid. Like even if I buy the kind of like the cheap knockoff versions, like not the official Canon ones, because the official Canon ones are an absolute fortune. If I just buy the cheap ones, they're still like 30 quid each or something like that. And I've got three of them for different spots around the room. So there's like 90 quid on power packs, and like these are all the little bits and pieces that soon add up. But it's the things that, in the grand scheme of things, that's the stuff that allows me to make more content. Because instead of spending my day pulling cables out and moving things around, I'm spending my day making content. I'm spending my day actually on the creative stuff. So it's money well spent. It's why I've not taken anything out of my income pot since I started doing this full time. It's there to buy stuff to reinvest back into this to help me. Like, for example, the Malifaux, the Malifaux Rex video that I did today. If anybody's seen it, like, because I don't want to show those models off painted, I want to show them off like basically kind of built and primed. Tell you what, let me put. Oops, nearly knocked over my oil stuff there. I'll tell you what, we'll put Deadpool just out of shot there. Keeping my piece of paper there. That's better. If anybody saw the Malifaux Rex video that I did today, I've just bought some LED lights with coloured gels so that I can kind of to like light the miniatures better. For like nice photographs, for thumbnails and stuff like that. Like they're like 30 quid a light. All those kind of things like mount up. And I would never recommend anybody who's just kind of hobbying or is just starting out with a YouTube channel or something like that. I would never recommend you buy any of that stuff. But for me now, doing it all the time, these are all the little things that help me just kind of sort of do things quickly, stand out from the crowd a little bit and that. So I don't know where we got to with that one. Oh yeah, it was about having space for a hood, wasn't it? Lord Maiden says, please move the dog slightly. Sorry mate, that must have been a little while ago. Andrew says, spend $400 to $500 and find out whether you like it. It's good advice. But if I follow it in the first place, I might not be here. Yeah, it's surprising though. Like a lot of people will do that. Like there's a lot of people that will tell you to go and buy like a full like sort of like 40k army to play it and see if you like it. Like I would always be happy to let people just use whatever they've got. When I first learned, we were talking about Kings of War earlier on, When I first learned how to play Kings of War, I learned by just cutting out bits of cardboard, the right base sizes, and literally just pushing them around the board to see what they did. And I'm surprised you don't see that more in other games. People just like, sort of like, even just bases, counters, anything, just to try games out. There's so many games out there now that give you the rules for free. Like Malifaux, for example, the rules are free. All of the cards, like the card stats for the models are all free. Like it's free to try the game to see if it's for you. But I think people generally, and I'm one of them as well, man, I'm terrible for it. People generally think they need to buy the models and they need to buy the rule book and everything just to see if it's for them. Just washing that leg down a bit where I've gone over it a touch. Krabby's in as well. Like, what's that, like 25 minutes ago? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep watching these, and then we'll have a bit of a natter and stuff. 'Cause I need a drink. Hello, Krabby mate. How you doing, fella? Paul's saying you should definitely do a diorama challenge. I'm not sure if I'd do a diorama challenge, mate, 'cause I feel like it could be a little bit polarizing. Like, it might be a step too far for some people. But we'll see. We'll see what people say. We might put it to the vote, like in the Patreon or something like that, or maybe on one of these hobby hangout streams. Like, there seems to be a bit of a dedicated crowd that come in most weeks. We get somewhere between 50 and 60 people every Wednesday. Like, compared to Monday, I think there was like 110 people in on Monday. The hobby hangouts are a little bit quieter, but it's kind of, we see the same kind of, the same names, the same faces every week. So it's like a nice little community here. So maybe we put some of the challenges to the odd Wednesday night vote as well. I'd like to get the Patreon's thoughts on it, because obviously they're a big part of why I get to do what I do every day, and give them some voting powers as well. But yeah, I think we'll put something to Wednesday night votes. Lord Maiden saying a lure pack debate. I can't believe it's not butter, eh? Flying Mama saying, hey Christian, we're okay. Glad to see you all right there, Ruth. Tony saying, does that mean I've got time to do another base? You've always got time, mate. Right, I'm catching up a little bit here. People chatting backwards and forwards. Brian K, good evening, mate. Hope you're well. Tasty Brain Drain, good evening to you too, mate. Martin Van Ree, Insurance Mathematics 101, yes. Do you know what it is, mate? People will laugh about this. People that have been kind of like around on the stream for a long time. Like, because I've kind of spent a lot of my working life previously before I started doing this full time, sort of in kind of corporate jobs and stuff like that. When it comes down to the business economics of it and all that kind of stuff, I find that kind of stuff interesting. I didn't find doing it interesting for a job. I just found it interesting understanding how it all worked. Like, especially when it comes to things like marketing plans and understanding kind of why certain things will be a certain price, and like the video I did about GW's kind of secret about their pricing and stuff. It's not really a secret, and it's not really just linked to Games Workshop. Like, most, if not all, sort of medium to large businesses work in exactly the same way. It's not secrets. It's just stuff I've experienced in my kind of work life. Yeah, but I often go off on a tangent about that kind of stuff. Lord Maiden saying, how is everyone? Salt and Shake, I haven't seen them for ages, mate. Tony Howell, pickled egg. Talk about dividing the world there, mate. Pickled egg, not for me at all. What the hell's going on here? Loads of comments coming on my airbrush video about I got a load of comments from people saying don't buy it from Amazon, buy it from AliExpress. I've never used AliExpress, I'll be honest. The reason I use Amazon is purely because I have an Amazon Prime membership, which means I get it the next day. Some things I can get within 2 hours because there's a local depot to me, and they have a really good returns policy. I don't have a local hobby shop that stocks the things that I buy from Amazon, like things like an airbrush, for example. I don't have a hobby shop that does that kind of stuff, so I'm not putting like a local business out. I'm not putting a local business under by not shopping with them and shopping with Amazon. If I wasn't shopping with Amazon, I'd be shopping with some eBay seller who's selling from their garage, or I'd be buying from China. So yeah, so I know you can get stuff a bit cheaper on AliExpress, but the idea was I'd buy the airbrush, I'd do a review, and if it was garbage, I was going to send it back. I'll be perfectly honest. Like, why be out of pocket and stuck with something that's absolutely like no use? But they weren't. They were great, so I kept them. So I paid the money for them. It cost me 60 quid for the 2 different airbrushes, but I've kept them because I think they're good and I think they're useful. But yeah, the amount of people that just like don't shop at Amazon and go to AliExpress kind of thing. Marcus is saying, last year when Kiss came through on their farewell tour, I entered every competition to try and win tickets, but my luck was not on my side. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to win every prize, mate, and I'm sure some competitions would certainly be more popular than others, but it's just really surprising that so few people actually do enter them. Blizzard saying he sent this in a few days ago. You did, mate. Yeah, I've got that one. Tony saying, one of my cheap airbrushes came with spray-on inks for temporary tattooing. No beard templates though. Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a modern day phenomenon of young lads, and like I'm seeing them airbrushing hair and stuff like that. Like you know, where sort of young lads are starting to get like receding foreheads, like receding hairlines and stuff. I've seen them getting them like airbrushed in and stuff like that. I'm not that vain, I'll be honest. If I was, I certainly wouldn't be. I wouldn't have a shaved head and a beard, and I wouldn't be on YouTube if I was that vain. Right. I think that's that one done. That's all of those washed. Let me wash my brush, and we'll have a little bit of a natter. We're gonna have a catch up with the chat. Right, where are we up to here? Simon Dave, good evening, mate. This is what are you painting? I am painting, mate. This is the Lord Cooper core box for Malifaux, mate. It's the new faction for Malifaux, the Explorers Society. I've been painting it over the last couple of weeks, and tonight I'm just finishing it off. Where was that one? Steve Evans, good evening to you, mate. How are you doing? Tony Sin, sounds glorious, two of my favourite things. Tasty Brain Dream says, yes, I hope these live streams continue for a long time. I've got no intention of stopping them, mate. It's fun for me. I enjoy doing them. So, yeah, no intention of ever stopping. Barry says, what's the email for the base challenge again? It is BlackJackLegacy, all one word, at gmail.com. That's the email to send your Ace of Base challenges to. Your challenge pictures. Mark says, give over, mate. You could be painting skirting boards and we will all watch. Don't say that, man. My missus will have me decorating when I'm doing live streams. You won't. The air would be blue, mate, if I was decorating. I hate decorating. I am not a fan of painting walls and painting skirting boards. My wife does most of the decorating in our house, to be fair. I do the building work, like sort of building walls and plasterboarding and all that kind of stuff and filling all the holes. I do all of that stuff, but she does most of the decorating. She is a hell of a wallpaperer. She's really good. But yeah, I don't get any joy at all from decorating. Scott says, night all, got to get sorted for work tomorrow. Take care, Scotty. Hope you're well. Lord Maiden says, what was the name of the miniature? Lord Maiden. Surely it's little tongue. Is that what I said? Lord Cooper. That's what it's called. Flying Mal says, yep, still painting the base ready for the other bits. Not sure it's going to work, but going for it. Of course it's going to work. Of course it's going to work. Have faith in it. Peter said, I thought the base challenge entry could be put on Facebook. No, mate, they need to be emailed to me. The problem with Facebook is wherever I tell people to put them on Facebook, people they post them in the original thread. They don't go to the challenge page. They post them in their own little sort of bit. Facebook doesn't show me every post that goes up there either. So there's always somebody comes to me when a competition goes, you didn't put mine in. I sent it to you. I put it in ages ago. I put it in this group or something like that. So I've found that the easiest way is to get people to email them to me, and that way I just basically I've got like a little filter thing set up so that whenever it comes in with the name Ace of Base in the title, it automatically puts it into a folder, and everybody's entry goes into a folder on my in my email and then I can go in and access them all. And that way I can cut the pictures out. I can like cut and paste the pictures into a folder, and then they're there for everybody to see. Where once I put them on the thing. So yeah, email's the way I need to deal with them. Yeah. Bit of chat going backwards on. Stuart Hayes, waxy big foot. Thought you were a hard northerner. It's the wax, mate. Is just. I mean, you can see it's going well. I also get, you can see here, I trimmed that little bit actually today. This is like my little ducktail of my beard. It's like all of the hair on my face grows to a point there, and this bit here always spikes out a little bit. So yeah, I end up putting a little bit of like beard wax on just to stop all the bits that spike out. Like who am I thinking of? Oh, what's he called? Cat Weasel, for those that remember Cat Weasel. Yes, the beard goes everywhere. Well, what's you up to? Popcorn we're talking about here. Martin saying I have a €40 AK interactive airbrush. I really like it. Yeah, if it works, mate, that's all you need. Duffy Makowski, good evening to you, mate. How are you doing? That must have jumped ahead again there to get into that one. Where? Oh, my God, that didn't half jump ahead again. It always keeps jumping. Every now and again, I'll just glance and it disappears. Here we are again. We're back. John Estel said, I got a camera ages ago, a solid DSLR at a time, but it's still better than me. This cheap airbrush is still way better than me. At some point, it could be worth a step up. I tell you what, mate. When it comes to cameras and stuff, like people will tell you, you need kind of like YouTube is a prime example. People will tell you need really fancy cameras, all these high-end stuff with like sort of fancy lenses, and you'll need this lens for doing this, and you'll need this lens for doing that. I agree to a point. Like so for example, I started to invest in the channel a while ago and buy in better equipment. So I was replacing sort of like the stuff I bought when I first started out. I was replacing, like, so for example, the camera I'm using tonight is my original camera that I had like when I first bought a decent DSLR. The problem with it is it doesn't have what's called a clean HDMI out. So if I put it on autofocus, so if I kind of lay in here, it's not going to autofocus. It won't focus because I've turned it onto manual basically. So the autofocus is turned off. It's the only way I can take off. You know, when on a camera where you get the little kind of like the little square that like moves around as you move around. If I turn it back on, you'll see that the little white box will be moving around all over the screen. So that after a while, when I was doing live streams and doing more and more live streams, I decided to upgrade to the next camera, the newer version of this one. This one here is a Canon EOS 200D, and I upgraded to a 250D because it's got a clean HDMI output, which means I can stream and it will autofocus. But it's not a massive upgrade, and it also meant I've got a couple of different cameras when I'm doing things like, so for example, a perfect example is when I did the what was it called, the Armada gameplay video. I had 3 cameras all kind of streaming at the same time, and I could switch between the different screens and stuff, and that's just to make it easy for me. But these cameras, I mean, the cameras are not cheap, don't get me wrong, they're about 400, maybe £450, but that isn't that expensive for a DSLR camera. Some people pay like thousands of pounds for DSLR cameras. I could go and buy a £2,000 camera now, and it wouldn't get me one more subscriber. It wouldn't make any difference. Sometimes you just need to buy the equipment that does the job you need. So, and I think Airbrush is firmly fit into that. Yeah, Flying My Mama said, "Are you able to email Peter?" Yeah, if you have any problems, Peter, yeah, just drop me a message. Send me through Facebook Messenger or something if you're struggling, mate. But let me know. I must admit, Ruth, thank you very much there. I'm so kind of like sort of caught up in my own little world, and it didn't even occur to me people might not be able to email. Christian sharing the link there for the merch as well. Thank you very much. Simon Dave saying, yeah, the cheap ones are great, but can be a bit of a gamble quality-wise. Yeah, I think that's maybe the thing, yeah. I've certainly been lucky if that's the case, but I'm sure some people have had some stinkers. Bobby Clark said, don't enter competitions with hobby prizes anymore. I got some negative comments before when they realised I was a commission painter and not a normal hobbyist. Personally, mate, I don't enter them either for a similar kind of a reason. So a little while ago, Games Workshop did a hobby hero thing, where basically they were kind of like, nominate the person that you think sort of is a hobby hero that basically you've like has done a really good job of spreading the word about Games Workshop games and stuff. And there was a slew of YouTubers, influencers, whatever you want to call them, who were basically asking their supporters, their subscribers, their followers, whatever it was, to vote for them. And I thought that was terrible. It was really uncomfortable. And personally, I would never want anybody to kind of point the finger at me and say you've influenced that competition, because people say, well, like you're on YouTube kind of thing. Like it must be a bit dodgy. So I don't enter any competitions personally. Like when people are doing like their subscriber giveaways and stuff like that, I never enter any of those, because I think I'd feel bad if I won. I would never, like, I don't promote any of those kind of hobby hero stuff, because I don't want anybody thinking that I'm trying to influence anything. So it's a weird one. It's I've seen other people do stuff that I wouldn't do myself, so I tend just to kind of keep out of them now. Just Kev says, here's gang, hope everyone's keeping safe and sound. Busy saying, bloody gatekeepers, you get them in all walks of life, unfortunately. Currently working opposite one where I'm working. Yeah, I remember, like, when I was a Sparky and stuff, you got the guys who would only ever buy the really expensive tools. And if you had cheap gear, if you had cheap tools and stuff, it was like, what are you using that for? Like, you can't use it, it'll not last 5 minutes and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm an apprentice. I'm on about like £100 a week or something like that. I can't afford to buy like £1,000 worth of snap-on tools or something like that. Tony's saying, Bobby, when Andy does competitions, the prize is always allocated randomly in step with the idea. It's not to see who's the best. Yeah, it's another reason, mate. I never want to be able to kind of seem to be sort of currying favour with people. There's people who support me kind of financially. There's people who support me both financially and sort of help me doing stuff in the background. I would never want any of those to feel like if they won that they'd been kind of singled out. It always has to be random, and it always has to be for entering. It's not for the standard. It's not for the quality. If you take part in the challenge, you are entered into the competition. That's why I always try and do it that way. Peterson, you wouldn't learn to drive in a Bentley, except Mini W Hull. I learned to drive in a Ford Fiesta, mate. That's what I learned to drive in. Bloggy saying, all my airbrushes are master airbrushed, which basically TCP Global's made in China, house brand. They're perfectly suitable for my needs. I thought about getting an iWater to see what the hype is. Yeah, and to be honest, mate, I'd use just the cheap ones, and my wife bought me one for a Christmas present. Basically, it was Christmas time. It was like, what do you want for Christmas? And it was like, I honestly have no idea. There's nothing I really need. And she went, well, why don't you get something that you really want, but you probably wouldn't get for yourself? And I said, do you know what? I wouldn't mind a better airbrush, and that was why I got mine. And whilst I love it, and it is definitely better quality, I don't think it's made by painting any better. It's quicker to clean. It'll definitely last longer. I'll be able to buy spare parts for it very, very readily, but I'm not sure it's made any difference at all to my painting. Yeah, Bobby's saying there about being seen as a business. I'm really conscious of it now, mate. Elliot Lancaster says, I couldn't decide for months. Good evening, by the way. Whether to get an airbrush. After your video, I got a battery one. I primed the base coat of my first Cadians. Love it. Sure, I'll invest more in the future. Thanks. Thank you very much, mate. I'm hearing a lot of people who are buying it after seeing my video and are happy with it. And that's surely the whole point. Are you going to suddenly start winning awards with it? No, you're not. If you get really good and you enjoy it, will you probably spend more money and go and buy a compressor with a tank and all that kind of stuff down the line? Yeah, maybe you will. But you know what? If you're on the fence about giving it a try, you're not sure if it's for you, I don't think 30 quid is like... 30 quid is a box of Marines, isn't it? It's less than a box of Marines. It's worth a try, isn't it? It's worth a try. Busey saying Blackjack Chan, the Chinese ambassador of airbrushes and battery packs, and also LED lights. Yes. W. Magowski, I got to that bit now. Good evening, he says. Afternoon from sunny Levittown. I'm about 20 minutes behind the chat. Let's see if I can catch up now. Whoop, that one's just jumped again there. Peter saying fewer people on Wednesday, but better class. That's what it is, mate. Less people in the chat, but it's the diehards. It's the real hardcores on a Wednesday. Monley, good evening, Monley says, what's your opinion on Warhammer Underworlds and Blood Bowl second season? First of all, mate, thank you for joining the chat tonight. Secondly, I'm not a fan of Blood Bowl at all. So my opinion on Blood Bowl would be very, very it will be very biased, if I'm honest. If I'm giving you an unbiased opinion, it's a game that lots of people play. The quality of the minis is fantastic. I think you get a lot for your money. The game itself, personally, I don't like. So I couldn't recommend it because I don't enjoy it. Doesn't make it a bad game. Warhammer Underworlds, I think, is a very good game until you start playing with a wider group of people and it starts to become kind of like competitive power creep. I talked about this on my video yesterday and on Monday's live stream. It's a perfect game for beginners getting into miniature wargaming. If you're just playing with somebody at home, if you're in lockdown or something like that, you want to play with your kids, you want to play with your partner, I think it's a great game. The minute you then sort of step over the line into playing down the local hobby shop, playing with your gaming group friends, and you start getting that kind of like meta gaming competitive edge, it kind of turns me off a little bit at that point. But it is a good game. The rules are good. The models are good. It's well priced. I think it's a good game, mate. Warwick saying, I'd not really looked at Mantic Kings of War until your sweepstake thing giveaway. Northern Alliance looks very cool, especially with how models could be in other games I play. The Northern Alliance are one of the newer factions, mate, and they came out in when 3rd edition was launched back end of... Wow, it might have actually been back end of 2019 now. But yeah, it's fantastic, mate. Christian sharing the affiliate link as well for Amazon. Thank you very much, sir. Simon Davis is finally finished Ace of Base Minis. Nice one, mate. Look forward to seeing those. Peter, that is the email address, mate. Yes, that's it. Simon Davis is asking for votes is lame, but you're definitely a hobby hero, mate. Your streams motivate me to paint a great pile of shame. I'm not in this for kind of like for recognition. I'm not in this for praise. I'm not in this I'm certainly not in this to get rich. I'm not in this to be kind of famous or anything like that. I'm somebody who loves, like, I love hobbying. I love miniature games. I love painting miniatures. I love speaking with other people who love that kind of stuff too. And it became, and filmmaking, recording, kind of talking to people from all around the world, finding out more about what other people are playing. That became a huge passion to me, and that's how I've ended up doing what I'm doing. But I'm certainly not in this for people to kind of like to pat me on the back and tell me what a good job I'm doing and stuff like that. The day I don't enjoy it is the day I stop doing it. And whilst it's nice that people enjoy it, I'm sure some people do. While it is nice that people enjoy it, that's not my motivation kind of thing. It's almost a case of if I want people to enjoy it because I'm enjoying it kind of thing, and we're sharing it in it together kind of thing. I hope that makes sense. It doesn't come across too kind of like it's all about me kind of thing. That's not what I meant. Andrew says, hey, I give $20 a month, where's my free prize? Peter says, Mantic are running a hobby hero, just saying. They are, mate. I didn't want to kind of, yes, they are, yes. Yeah. Christian saying technically your free stuff comes every 6 months. Exactly, mate. Yeah, technically when I get round to doing it, I am terrible for something like that. Duffy says 20 minutes behind is nothing, I'm years behind. Nice one. Christian saying there about sharing the link there for Goblin Gaming. Thank you folks for clicking that link the other night as well. It suddenly started working again unbelievably once I emailed them. VJ saying Blitz Bowl, it's like Blood Bowl but fun. That's my opinion as well, mate. That's my opinion. Ed saying if you enjoy playing competitively, it's about the best game GW doing that style. Yeah, I probably would disagree with that if I'm honest, mate. It's definitely the game that has been designed to be competitive. I think if you're just in it for, I think the problem with Underworld, and it's something all competitive games suffer from. I think as soon as your playing group gets to a size where you create your own little meta and people are competitive and want to win, it kind of gets out of hand. But that's the same for Star Wars X-Wing. I'm sure it's the same for God Tier. I'm sure it's the same for any kind of competitive game, Magic the Gathering, all those kind of things. But if you're just playing with one or two people, or you've got a close friend who you normally play with, or you're just trying to introduce your partner or maybe some kids into it, I think it's a great game. It's just nice and fun. It's quite relaxed. It's when you start trying to kind of power game it. It's like Warcry, for example. I love Warcry, and I love the fact I can buy a warband and I can play a warband. I'm not trying to list build. I'm not trying to find the most effective kind of competitive balance. I just like to kind of pick up a warband and just play with it. And luckily, the people I play with feel the same way about it. And that's what keeps it fun for me. That's probably one of the reasons why I love Warcry. It's probably one of the reasons why it's one of my favourite games. Is because the people I play with all feel the same way about it. Peter says he's got Beastgrave and he's dying to play it. Yeah, me too, mate. Colton Lane says, hello, good evening, mate, by the way. He says, I have like 10 Underworld warbands, 2 of which are fully painted. I've still not played a game of it yet. It's not a particularly sort of expensive way to just pick up like little... Like, what are they? Are they about 18 quid or something like that to pick up like a warband when they come out? It's a nice little painting project, a nice little weekend project type thing. I think it's a great way for beginners to get started. It's not overwhelming when it comes to building the models. It's not overwhelming when it comes to painting the amount that you get. And it's a relatively kind of... I mean, there's a lot of sort of tactics and complexity in the game, but if you just take the pre-built decks that come with the new warbands, you can't go wrong just for having a bit of fun. Yes, Barry Clive is saying Blitzball Season 2, 100%, mate. Thank you very much. And Colton says, I've only got one game of Warcry in, but I agree, it's a ton of fun. Yeah, I love it, mate. Like I say, but I think it's genuinely because the people I play with feel the same way. So, right, I've caught up. That's good. Peter says, I played a demo of Warcry and Flying Mama let me win. My game with Ruth is still one of my favourite ever games. The one we had at the Weekender. It was a nail biter. Definitely. Right, how are these drying out? Yeah, they're good enough. Right, in that case, what we'll do is we'll get another contrast paint. And we'll do all the grassy bits. I think we're going to come in where we'll come in with the orc flesh. I think for the grassy bits, they're all going to get washed and dry brushed as well. So don't worry too much about the initial colour of what it looks like. Don't look at it and go, "Oh, what's he done? He's ruined their minis." They're all going to get washed and dry brushed and a little bit of highlighted and stuff. So. Where are we at? Mark saying Underworld, Shadespire and Beastgrave, what's the difference? So mate, the first season was called Shadespire, second season was called Night Vault, third season was called Beastgrave, and the new season, fourth season, is called Diachasm. Now the difference between first and second season was they introduced magic in season 2. And then what they did when third season came out was they rotated out some of the cards from the first season. So if you're familiar with games like Magic the Gathering, where they have kind of like rotations where certain cards are kind of banned from competitive play or whatever, that was one of the differences, mate. There tends to be sometimes some little rules tweaks, but it's generally around a rebalancing of the let's get it back on camera. A rebalancing of the cards, any kind of sort of major, sort of super powerful combinations that are becoming auto include. They'll kind of do some kind of like some bans and stuff like that on them. The difference being as well is the theme of the kind of the setting changes. So if you're into the kind of like the background stories and the lore, the theme tends to change a little bit. The settings change, and the warbands basically that come out, there's a bit of a change in like sort of, it's like new ones coming out type thing. So that tends to be the biggest change, mate, really, to be fair. But if you're just going to play, as I was talking about on Monday and on the catch-up video on Tuesday, if you're just going to play it like a board game at home with family, any of those starter sets are absolutely fantastic to play. Marcus says, add more comments to mess with Andy. Comments are good, mate. I'd much rather be behind than sitting here with nothing to talk about, that's for sure. I don't mind being behind the comments if you lot don't mind me taking ages to catch up. It's always different on a Wednesday as well, because I am actually focusing on doing something ordinary, not like just looking at the screen all night. Peter says, I bit 9 nails watching your game with Ruth. Yeah, it was a great game. I really enjoyed that one. Right. Yeah, Colton's saying they're basically just new starter sets with some updated rules. Yeah, that's pretty much it, mate. But yeah, when it comes to competitive play, they rotate out certain cards so you can't use them in competitive play. But if you're playing with your friends or whatever, just it's entirely up to you. Use what you want. But I think obviously a lot of people do tend to play by the competitive rules. It seems to be something that happens a lot with GW games, I've noticed, is people tend to want to always play with the official rules, and tend not to house rule stuff quite so much. Even people who don't go to tournaments tend to follow all of the official rules as if that's the only way to play. Stu says, I use the Goblin link to order all the new Death Guard stuff. Normally I use Element as they are local but no collections, so I thought I'd give Goblin a go and help a good cause. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, Goblin Gaming tend to be really good with their deliveries. I've never had any problems with them. Hopefully you experience the same good service, mate. So thank you very much for your support. Warwick saying, yeah, all the old season warbands you can no longer purchase them. I think you can still purchase the season 1 warbands, mate. You just can't buy them with the cards. I think that they basically started selling them without the cards because the cards weren't playable. So you can still use the season 1 warbands. However, you can't use the cards that came with them. So you can make up a fresh deck using universal cards. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they did that because I think the idea was no models would ever become sort of defunct, but cards would. Where was that one again? Mark saying, just uploaded something to the Discord. I'll check that later on. Ed saying, I'm very much competitive players. Most of the people I play with are the issues between competitive and casual players and come from mismatched expectations. Do you know what it is, mate? I always say that is the problem in 99% of issues that come up when people talk about sort of competitive players ruining the games or getting smashed off the table. I think people seem to forget that actually there's nothing wrong with being a competitive player. The problem is when competitive players get matched up with players who just want to play a fun sort of theme list and then wonder why the game wasn't all that fun. Unfortunately, that's just life. It doesn't make competitive gamers bad. It doesn't make fluffy players kind of sort of not very skilled or anything like that. It's just the mismatch in expectations. It's like getting into a boxing ring and one person think they're just there to do a little bit of sparring and getting fit, and the other one thinking that they're practicing for the world title fight. There's going to be a bit of a mismatch in expectations. Simon Dave says, Chiefs for the stream, Andy. The minis look great. I'm off to bed. Thank you very much for popping in, mate. Nice to see you as always. Peter said, I actually bought some of the early warbands from Underworlds from eBay when they weren't too expensive. Yeah, like I say, mate, I think they're about 15 to 18 quid, something like that. Or they certainly used to be. It's been a little while since I bought any, but entry point price wise, I think it's great value. Ed's saying, which is why I always have a garbage list with me if I'm gaming at my local gaming store, local GW store. I think the problem is, mate, is like if you enjoy playing competitively, like I feel bad that competitive players have to then sacrifice what they enjoy in order to get a game. Like I think the problem is we are just in a hobby where it's quite niche, and unfortunately there's not enough people to kind of service everybody's needs all of the time. There's never enough kind of competitive players all in the same place at the same time, versus there's never enough kind of more sort of relaxed casual players. And so what ends up happening is there's always somebody somewhere is making a compromise. Ruth says, loved the game with BlackJack Legacy. I think everyone who came over to watch felt that tension. It was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I still remember almost every move of that game. And long may it live as well. One day, Ruth, we'll have another weekender and we'll have a rematch. Eh? We might even get a game of Malifaux. Ruth has to head off tonight. All thanks for the natter. Stay safe. You too, Ruth. Take care. Lovely to have you as always. Warwick saying, no, the cards for the model stats are not in the things you can get, so you cannot use them. No, but I'm pretty sure. I'm sure I read somewhere, mate, that you can still use the models, but you just can't use the the ploy cards and the whatever they're called. I forget what they're called now. I know what you mean, though. You won't be able to get the stat cards. I wonder how that works then. I guess the idea is you just can't. If you've got the models, you can still use them because you've got their stat cards, but they don't sell them anymore for new players to come in and play them. I guess that's probably the way it works. But if you already own them, you can still use them, but you have to play universal cards with them, I think. That's maybe what it was. But yeah, they do still sell the minis though, don't they? I think they use them as kind of like alternatives for in AOS and stuff. Right, getting these bits of green in here. Feels like they're starting to come together now with a little bit of colour on the base. When the bases are always kind of like just a big white or a big grey lump kind of thing, it always makes them look like massively unfinished. I always kind of recommend people sort of at least get 90% of the model like finished, like with paint over everything, like even if it's just base coated, before you start making any kind of drastic decisions about, I want to do like extra fancy sort of details on this or whatever, because sometimes it's just not having the bases done completely unbalances these minis, for example. Peter says maybe they use official rules because GW games are more likely to be able to play it as a pickup game. I think you're probably right, mate. Yeah, I think other games maybe are less popular, so you kind of you play with the same few people, and if you decide to make up a few rules or house rule stuff or not use the latest rule set, for example, then it makes no difference. But I think you're probably right. People do because they're more popular, things like 40k and AOS, because they're more popular, people do sort of stick to the rules, and I completely understand why you would. Scott Latham says, Goblin turned around my Malifaux order in 24 hours via your link, so we'll always get my vote. That's fantastic, mate. Honestly, I've bought stuff from them in the past. I bought a gift for a friend for a birthday present, and I ordered it. I think I ordered it something like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it arrived like 9 o'clock the next morning. It was there in less than 24 hours. And I know some of that is always it's down to kind of like Royal Mail and all of that kind of stuff as well. But I've used other companies, and I won't mention which ones, but I've had loads of missing parcels. And when I say missing parcels, like I have no proof they were ever sent originally, but I've had loads of missing stuff, and I've had to chase them up, and then I've had like stuff picked wrongly, or it's like they told me things are in stock when they're not in stock, so then they order them, so when I chase it up it's like, oh, we're waiting for an order. I once had an order from one place where I waited about 2 months for something to come into stock, and then when it did come into stock, they told me I still couldn't have my stuff because something that they'd been holding back for me, which was part of my order, they'd basically took it out of my order and sold it to somebody else. So then I was waiting for one of the things that had been in stock. So obviously I cancelled my order and just got my money back. But yeah, I never did use them again. Ed saying it's not just GW games, it's often about playing in public spaces, play by the cleanest rules to minimise arguments. Yeah, I think you're probably right, mate. I think it's probably because there's not a lot of gaming clubs around where I live. Obviously, certainly not now, to be fair. And there's not a lot of hobby shops either. Lord Maiden says, what's he done? He's made the miniatures unique and great. How dare you just slap some contrast paint on there? How have I missed? I'm glad I just looked at. How have I missed a massive piece of wood there? Let's get that on there. I must have completely forgot to paint that side of the Mini. Let's get them bits on. And then remember that I've got to put a wash over those as well. Right at the front as well, right at the front of the Mini where the dog's facing, you would have saw that every single time. I don't know what that is either. We'll paint that like a bit of stone or something, I think. Oh. Marcus is saying, I actually got a hold of Skeeth's Wild Hunt Warband with the cards on eBay 2 weeks ago. I think I bought all of the. I think I bought all of Season 1 Warbands. I was quite into it back then with Shadespire, and I think I didn't buy anything for Night Vault. And then I bought Beastgrave, but I don't think I've even played it, if I'm perfectly honest. Sad, really, isn't it? Right, let's let them dry a little bit while I have a bit of lemonade. Warwick saying, so yes, you can still use those warbands and the warband specific cards, but you can't buy it. Yeah, that's what I must have understood, mate. Mark Corley saying you have to buy all the warbands to get the different cards, like you bought all the ships to get the card. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, mate, but obviously if you're playing competitively, you kind of have to. Peter says, a year without games, I wouldn't even mind getting my neck stepped on badly by a competitive gamer, as long as I can have fun again. I'm really missing it, I'll be honest, mate. I mean, I know my wife was an absolute sport and she came on and did the live stream on Monday and stuff, and we do play games, but like there's games that I really enjoy that I know my wife won't enjoy and won't play, and I'm really missing getting out and playing those kind of games, and I'm missing getting out and just being a nerd and talking to other gamers and like kind of geeking out about stuff. It's great to be able to do these live streams, and it's great to be able to chat in the Discord and all of that kind of stuff, but it comes second to kind of face-to-face sort of like chatting. And getting to events, I've really missed going to like all the kind of the summer conventions and stuff. Ed says, we're the minority. Playing is better than not playing. I'm lucky as I've got good friends who are competitive as I am. Yeah, and that's good, mate. Krabby says, I started painting like this, but I'm terrible for missing detail. Yeah, I just missed some bits there as well, mate. Phil Campbell, good evening, mate. How are you doing? Peter says, better late than never. Peter says, also sometimes a fluff list can actually pose a good challenge for a competitive player when your army is tooled to face the meta and some fluffy guard horde list swamps you. That is true, mate. I mean, sometimes, beginner's luck is a real thing because you don't know, like, you don't know the ins and outs. You don't know what to expect, so you're not building a list for like to take on the meta or what's popular. And sometimes it's like somebody puts a list together that's completely out of left field, and even the most experienced players is like, well, I didn't expect you to do that. And it's like, and the reason they didn't expect you to do that is because you didn't even know you were going to do that. It wasn't a plan. It was just like, oh, I'll have a go at this. Like, and sometimes that's how people get caught out. Tony says, I find sometimes contrast paint seems to shrink a bit and leave little dots where the primer shows through, and I know I painted that bit. I know exactly what you mean, mate. And to be honest, I This is why I tend to still wash over the top of them. Contrast paints are not some kind of like miracle kind of paint. They're not this sort of shade highlight kind of like thing that they were made out to be. But what they are is really highly pigmented inks, for want of a better word, that get some really nice colours down really quick. You don't have to do multiple layers, but I still kind of wash and dry brush them. But I just think they give some really nice colouring. I mean, as an example, let me just get that one on shot there. There's the Lord Cooper one. So that base is just a contrast paint with a wash over the top, and you can already start to see the kind of like the wash in the recesses, and I just like how it's looking. I mean, I will dry brush it like a little bit and stuff, and pick out some bits of worn wood and stuff. And I'll do the same with, I'm going to wash over the green as well, and I'll do a little bit of dry brushing just to pick out the highlights on those as well, because I think that'll pick up great. And that's all it needs. That's all it needs. I mean, like these are not winning any awards. That's what I was going to say as well. So I've been talking about doing stuff in the background. So what I've done is I have scripted and recorded a video, which is basically how to play Malifaux. And I've managed to get it down and cover pretty much 95% of the rules. I've managed to get it down to about 33 minutes. So what I've done is I've scripted it, and I've on my little auto cue thing that I've made myself, and I've basically read the whole thing back. And then the idea now is I've edited it so it's all kind of like sort of in the right place. I've got a few different kind of camera angles and stuff, so it's not just me on camera all the time. And now what I need to do is I need to get the miniatures finished, so I can now go back and record me actually sort of moving the minis, flipping the cards, measuring things out, showing how the rules work, sort of to then video and put over as kind of B-roll footage. So what you then get is a nice kind of crafted, edited, nicely filmed rules explanation. So it's not just, because what I've noticed from a lot of kind of how to play videos, they tend to either be static camera on a board, and when people are talking about the rules, like there's nothing happening on screen. You might as well be staring at a photograph. You're just looking at the screen kind of thing while they're explaining stuff. I've then seen other ones where it's people standing talking about the game, or sitting and talking about the game, but then you never see any minis, you never see any cards flipping, you never see any dice rolling, whatever the game is. So then it's basically just somebody telling you the rules. And then I've seen basically just like a gameplay, like a battle report type thing, but they don't really explain what they're doing. And if they do, then they take 2 or 3 hours to sort of to play through a game. So I've tried to look at the stuff that I think, if I was going to try and learn to play a game from watching a video, what would I like to see? I kind of want it to be presented with a little bit of polish, but I want to see it in action as well, and that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why I'm getting these all painted. So I'll be using these Explorers crew along with my Lady Justice crew, and that'll be the two kind of little core sets that I'm using to do this kind of stuff. Peter says, oh sorry, I've skipped ahead a little bit there. Marcus is saying, when I build a list for tournaments, I just go for the most balanced list I can make. I really don't care about the meta. Yeah, me too, mate. I don't know enough. I'm not. It's not the part of the game I get the most enjoyment from. I can have the best list, or I can have a list I've literally put together with models that I like the look of, and the enjoyment I get is from just going and playing a game. It's not whether I win or lose or not. I'd like to win. I like to win more than I lose. I don't want to be just going and basically being over on turn one type of thing. But as long as I come away with some like level of enjoyment, that's what I went for. Peter says, yes, I remember a game versus an Orc player. I had Chaos Marines and Thought, Anti-Horde, lots of heavy bolters, flamers. I got properly stomped because he wanted to try all Dreadnought Killer Clan. Hexy Beast, hello mate. It says, what a lot of people don't realise how much effort goes into making edited content, and a lot of the time don't even think about the time taken to learn to play, build and paint. I tell you what, mate, honestly, obviously I've not played a game of Malifaux 3rd edition yet, so I've had to teach myself how to play. So I've literally read the rule book cover to cover a million times. I've had to then, after I then break it down so that I wasn't just reading the rule book on camera. I've had to put it into like a nice presented view. I think it was something like about 11 pages of text and stuff like that. Obviously kind of like edited down and insert with different bits and pieces, examples and stuff. And then I kind of go back through it all, make sure it made sense, make sure it was all in the right order. Then trim it. Then I had to do like kind of like test recordings of how long does it take. Have I got too much information here? So I've kind of managed to edit it down to, like I say, about 30 minutes. And then I basically had to put it on my little auto cue, record the whole thing to camera. And you know, you get tongue tied, so then you've got to scroll back a bit and record that bit again. It takes a lot of time to get to that point, and now I've got to now go in and record all the B-roll footage. And this is really a test because it takes a long time to do this kind of stuff. It's not something I can do on a regular basis, and it's also not the kind of thing that will get a lot of views. So basically what will happen is if it takes me a month, for example, of doing this kind of stuff, and then I put the video up and it gets about 500 views, that's not the best use of a month's worth of time kind of thing. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to push my own quality. I'm trying to do new things to keep me interested. I'm trying to do things where basically if this works as a concept, I can then carve out my own little kind of niche, as in he's the guy who does all those kind of how to play videos, and over time that will then benefit me in the long run. So I know this isn't going to be hugely successful. It might be a complete flop. People might say, oh, what a load of rubbish, I just want to watch a battle report. If that's the case, then I live and learn kind of thing. But nobody else is doing what I'm trying to do at the minute. I'm trying to do something different. Scott's saying, really looking forward to your Malifaux video. Now I have some minis. Hopefully, mate, I don't let you down. I think it's got the potential to be good. It's the kind of thing I would like to see to be able to learn a game. If anybody's seen Rodney Smith with watch it play type videos and stuff like that, that's kind of where the ideas come from. The ability to watch a video and kind of learn the rules, because I'm a visual learner. I learn much better by listening to somebody telling me and watching how it's played. I'm not the kind of person generally who learns the rules by reading them and then it instantly sinks in and I know what it means. Malifaux is not a difficult game. It can get complex when you start getting into the synergies between models and stuff, but that's not in the rules. That's just stuff you learn when you play. The rules themselves are actually relatively straightforward, so hopefully that comes across. Hexy Beast says, I'm about to put together Aliens Another Day in the Core. Yeah, honestly, mate, anybody that does that kind of work, like sort of edited content, kind of, rather than like Monday night live streams, for all the kind of, I put a lot of work in on the topic and stuff like that, which is one of the reasons why I started clipping out a bit and putting them up as a separate video. As a prime example, the one I did for Monday, I clipped a piece out and put it on Tuesday, and the Tuesday videos had more views already than the one I did on Monday, because people like edited smaller portions of stuff. I've got another one that I clipped out from Monday's video that's going to go up live tomorrow as well. So, and no doubt that'll kind of get a few more views as well. But it's easy. It's easy. Like this. Like tonight's video is not really taking any prep. I've sat here and I've kind of rambled at the camera, and they're relatively easy to do if you get comfortable talking to a lens. But the ones where you kind of, especially when you're talking about rules, you can't afford to get the rules wrong. You can't teach somebody to play the game and teach them the wrong way. You've just completely wasted their time and you've wasted your time. The videos I used to do about like 5 rules beginners get wrong took so much time to research, because what I don't want to do is give somebody a rule, tell them they've been playing it wrong, and then actually somebody comes around and goes, no, you've got it wrong, everybody else is doing it right, kind of thing. Those things take a lot of researching and a lot of looking into. Bloggy saying, time to cook dinner. Got to take a hobby break. My model's almost finished. I finished it after dinner and post pictures to hobby group. Night, mate. Thank you very much for doing that as well. Hexy BC, I'm starting to get to the point where that my shoot and edit will generally take overnight. Yes, I'm just trying to make each video better. That's all I try to do, mate. I try to learn something new each time. I try to improve the sound quality, improve the camera, like sort of the videoing, try to improve my editing, all them kind of stuff. I try and do a little bit each better than the last one. Lord Min says it'll be good to go through it all. I wonder what you'll say about markers and upgrades, as some can be crew specific. If anything becomes too specific to certain crews, I'm tending to not kind of like go into detail, because I think as a beginner video, that's not really what you need to know. It's more about, here are 90% of the rules that you will use 90% of the time. And as a complete beginner, if you like this bit, then when you start to play your games, you'll learn the bit specific to specific crews. Otherwise, that video would then go on and be 5 hours long. Krabby said, I'm off to bed, early shifts for the next 3 days. Take care, mate, and we'll speak soon. Tasty Brain Drain says, you put out really good content, man, so I'm pretty sure your Malifaux video will be great. Thank you very much, that's very kind of you. James Bray says, good evening, a bit late. Always nice to see you, fella. Peter said, have you thought about doing it in segments? Some people do it, for example, video 1, how to set up. Easier to stumble on those videos with keywords. I have considered that, mate, and the way it's recorded, it still gives me the option to do that and split it up into maybe 2 or 3 sections. If I do that, what I'll do is I will put them all out on the same day and put them into a playlist, and then basically link the playlist so you can go through video 1, introduction and setup, video 2, sort of card mechanic like flipping, positive modifiers, all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of given myself, I wrote it with that in mind, and I thought if I can keep the playtime down to short enough, then I'll put it up as one video. At the minute, it's kind of 30 minute in totality. I can probably bring it down to like maybe 4 sort of 8-minute-ish video type things, I think. Warwick Dog, it says, time for me to head out. Great stream, keep doing your thing. If you haven't hit the like yet, smack it. Thank you very much, mate. Take care, buddy. Nice to have you in as always. Marcus says, the basics are always the best place to begin, quick and simple. Yeah, I think with these videos, it's like anything. You can, if you're starting to teach tactics, that's different to teaching the basics. So the things I'm going to be talking about is, what are soul stones? How can you use them? What are triggers? Like how do triggers work? How does a duel work when you're flipping cards? How does line of sight work? I'm trying to think what else I've covered in the basics and stuff. How do you build a crew? How do you hire your crew? That kind of stuff. Hexy B says, I think getting a rule wrong as part of a review happens from time to time, but I always highlight the comment that corrected. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting rules wrong, especially when you're playing games. There's a lot to remember when you're kind of doing a battle report or something like that. But if you are making a video that teaches somebody how to play the game, I don't think you can afford to get one wrong. I think you basically you devalue the whole video, because as soon as you get one wrong, people go, well, what else has he got wrong, kind of thing. It's a bit different if people are watching a battle report just to see a game player. I think you can forgive errors. Everybody does errors. It's just most of the time people don't have like a camera on them and like 100 people watching them. But if you're making a very specific, this is how to play and this is how the rule works video, this is why it takes so long. You have to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And the problem is at times like this in lockdown and stuff, you need to get people to give it a second opinion as well and have a look at it, because if you think it works that way and you're sure it works that way and it doesn't, that's when you come unstuck. Lord Maiden says, it makes sense. I think it'd be a great video and one I share with others. Thank you, mate. Jeff saying, 30-minute tutorial video is about the right spot for me. Yeah, if it was going to go over 30 minutes, mate, I would 100% split it up into like into smaller ones. If I could get, what I said to myself kind of was, if I can get it to no more than 30 minutes, there's a potential to just have it as one video. But I am kind of conscious it's still a long time to kind of sit and watch one video. Peter saying, must admit I'm pretty interested. Never got into Malifaux, but I'm really liking the models you're painting. Actually, the runaway rules for those sound fun. Yeah, they're pretty good. I just love the sculpt. I love the background lore, as you all know, and I think the sculpts really reflect them as well. Like they're exactly the characters that I would expect to see when I read the stories. Hexy B says one of the banes of playing solo. Absolutely, mate. And it's one of these things that's happened over time as well. Like the advent of the internet and stuff. It's basically like years ago, if you played a rule wrong, but all the people that you played with all agreed that that was the right way to play it, it didn't make any difference. That's just how you played. It's like if you play a game with just you and your partner at home, and you always play this one rule wrong, but you don't know it, but you both still play that same rule wrong, that's fine. That's just the new rule now. That's a house rule. But when it comes to the internet and you start asking questions online about how does this rule work, and you start like sort of going over the wording with a fine-tooth comb, and then thousands of people kind of pile and go, no, it means this, and yeah, but this is the rule as written, yeah, but this is the rule as intended, and all that kind of stuff. The internet's got a lot to answer for in that respect, and like FAQs and stuff, and errata is much more frequent these days because there are just so many people who will then argue about, even if it's really, really clear. You often get somebody who will say, "Well, I don't think it works like that. I'm waiting for the errata. I'm waiting for the FAQ on that one," and that's why companies end up like. I mean, companies make mistakes. Companies can word things a bit funny, but sometimes even the clearest of rules end up getting argued about online. Peter saying, done the tricky bit on my base. Hope it dries okay overnight. I'm sure it will, mate. Scott saying, loving the Malifaux laws, reading the 3rd edition currently. Yeah, I'm busy reading through the... is my book there? Yes, it is. I'm busy reading through the Explorer Society, which are the faction books. You do not need to buy these. If you do get into Malifaux, these are not absolutely necessary. They're just nice to have. They basically have some amazing artwork in them, I'll be honest. I mean, like things like... Let me get these on camera. There's some absolutely beautiful kind of full colour artwork in here. It has the cards for all the different models, so you can see all of the stats. It gives you a little bit of a background kind of story about each of the different models in that faction. And if I can get to... Let me find the bit where we come to stat cards. So, stat cards are roughly half of the book. Yeah. So, the first 84 pages are background lore, and the whole book is up to 162. So half of the book is just stories. The other half is stat cards and stories. However, the stat cards are all free online. So you don't need to buy this for the stat cards. If you only want the stats, just go online. You can have a look and decide whether they're models you want to buy. But if you are a fan of the background stories, these are fantastic. I've always wondered what was in these before. I never wanted to buy one because I didn't really know what they were. I've always wanted to kind of find out more, and now I know. I'll probably go and buy all the other faction ones, I'll be honest. So yeah, and I'm also flicking through the other side rule book as well, and the Through the Breach RPG, because it's got so much background stories, background lore. I'd love to do more like kind of like Malifaux lore stuff. Of the 5 different videos that I did about the different lore of the different games, the Malifaux one is by far the most watched. So I think there's definitely a crowd of people out there who are interested in what Malifaux is about. VJ says, okay folks, picking up our mate from the station for a day of beer and games. Not jealous at all, mate. Enjoy it. Jeff says, I played version 1 and I'm excited for M3 content. Weird Miniature Company isn't far from my home here in Atlanta. I didn't know that, mate. I didn't know that's where they were based. Peter says, the best rule was and always will be, if you're not sure, roll a D something and just game on. Exactly, mate. Exactly. And I think, I actually kind of admire what Games Workshop tried to do with Age of Sigmar when they took point costs out of the game and just said, look, just like, it doesn't matter. It's not important. Just put the models on the table, play with the ones you like, and just have fun. And actually, I kind of admired them for being very sort of brave and doing something very, very different. It didn't work out. Like, basically, they got absolutely lambasted for it, and they ended up caving and basically putting points into the game. And I'm sure it's a better game for having the points, and it's certainly, like, it becomes easier to balance a game. But I have to kind of, like, there's part of me that is kind of I think was proud of them to do something very, very different from everybody else. Lord Bain says, I remember the discussion we had in the Patreon about the Necron performing that rule GW said about. I think 5 of us came up with different conclusions. Yeah, exactly that, mate. And it does happen. I think I kind of, even I changed my opinion halfway through it, because I think it was clear in my head, but when I was trying to explain it, I was explaining it wrong. So yeah, that's exactly it. Scott Latham says, those books are now another must-have for me. Honestly, mate, like they are. You definitely do not need to have them. They don't add anything to the game. They don't give you extra scenarios. They don't give you access to kind of sort of special rules that you don't get anywhere else. They just give you all of the background information about that faction. If you have a favorite faction, they will give you all you need to know about it, and it really goes in depth about that particular faction and some of the kind of if you're a real fan of the background lore, that's where you'll find the little tidbits of stories that you'll never get to find out otherwise. James Bray says, even if those new AOS vampires are just for Underworlds, I think I'm going to get them. Look great to paint. My understanding is, mate, is they're for AOS. I forget what it's called now. Is it Soul Blight? Which I think might be like the new AOS type thing that's coming along. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're for a new version of Warhammer Quest, as we were talking about in Patreon. VJ says, Elder Sign and all manner of evil. Yes. Jeffrey says, Weird used to publish an online fanzine about Malifaux. Not sure if they still do it or not. I've got digital issues from way back in the day when it first started. I think that they're all online, mate. If you go to the Malifaux website, they're all online. The Weird Chronicles, I think it was called, weren't they? Was it called that? There's definitely loads of stuff on their website, though. People saying there, yeah, like our group, 2 weeks later on the next game day. Has anyone looked that up? No, right, roll the guys again. Exactly. Buzz is in from Underdog Painting. Hello, fella, how are you doing? James is saying, oh man, that reanimation protocols rework, I still don't understand. That was the one, reanimation protocols. Scott saying, I don't need it, but I want it. I'm like that with the other ones now, mate. Like I was always a case of like, I'm quite interested. I'd like to know like what they are, but I don't even play the game. Like I don't really need them and stuff like that. I'd like to actually like go to a hobby shop and pick one up and have a flick through it and see what they're about. But yeah, now I've got one. It's like, oh damn, now I need to buy them all. Lord Maiden said, I read some of the Neverborn stories in the Neverborn books, and they're good stories, but also a short synopsis for all the models. Yeah, that's exactly it, mate. So, if I can reach down again. Like I said, the first 80 pages are all like kind of background stories and stuff. But as an example, there's Lord Cooper, so the one we've been painting tonight. There's his card. We'll do it. There's his card, and then there's basically like a background story, like a synopsis about him and who he is and like what is he doing like in Malifaux. And the interesting thing is basically that the background stories and the background lore basically influence the rules as well. So the rules are closely linked to what they do in the kind of in their stories. Marcus is saying, yeah, it's called Soul Blight. That was it. I couldn't remember that. I thought it was something like that. James is saying vampires are definitely next Underworlds release. Ah, right, okay, mate. But I hope that's some part of more vampire releases. Fingers crossed, mate. That was where I was going. So what I said in our Patreon group last night, folks, I said I'm putting this out there now. GW got their reveal on Saturday. They've got that little kind of hidden logo with a question mark saying what is it. I said I'm kind of putting this out there. You can either tell me about my psychic powers when it comes true, or you can all laugh at me and make it like basically like what a stupid idea it was when it's not true. But I think that new game they're going to talk about, I don't think it's going to be like a big new game I don't think it's going to be like a Mordheim or like a Man of War or any of that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be the next Warhammer Quest, a bit like Silver Tower, or a bit like Hammerhall, whatever it was called, and a bit like Blackstone Fortress. I think it's going to be AOS based, like Silver Tower, and I think it's going to be kind of vampires, werewolves, witch hunters, zombies, that kind of stuff. I could be completely wrong, but that's my prediction. Let's see where we go. Scott saying, I have the Neverborn as my group, so that's me sorted. Nice one, mate. Jeffrey saying, yeah, that's an invite. Basil saying, just going from work, everywhere's flooded. Just brainstorming some ideas for videos and just made a Patreon. Nice, mate. Sorry it's all flooded. I've been seeing the floods on the news today, mate, down in sort of Durham way and kind of heading to York. We're quite lucky up here. There's not. It's not actually, the rain's not been too bad, but some of the pictures on TV were horrendous, mate. I hope you and the family and everybody's okay. Duffy saying, Lord Cooper looks like a steampunk Teddy Roosevelt. He does a bit, mate. He absolutely does. Look, his dogs are called Ulo and what's the other one called? I forget the name of the other dog, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of them was called Roosevelt. Hexy B says, write them back to models and to make a coffee. Have a good night. Stay hexy. Stay hexy indeed, mate. Low Maiden says, we'll hold you to it. If your prediction comes true, I'll send you a box full of minis. I honestly, like, that's where my heart tells me. I think there's a few little kind of like sneaky posters that they've been posting. One of them mentions the name, is it Ulfwar or something like that? The Ulf bit makes me think like wolf, like Wolven. The other bit makes me think of like kind of, what was it again? I was trying to kind of like work it out from old sort of GW kind of wording and stuff. It makes me think like sort of, what was it? I forget now, my mind's gone blank. But with the new vampire stuff coming out, it looks kind of medieval, which was making me think it's going to be more on the AOS side of things. It makes it sound like it's kind of like an invitation to visit a town. That's where my heart is. I could be completely wrong. That's what Marcus is saying. Wolf in Scandinavia. That's where my head was, mate. Yes. Tony says, was Warhammer Quest the thing that you couldn't talk about a while back? Then it was shelved. No, mate. It was GW airbrushes is what I'd heard because I was told Games Workshop were working with an airbrush manufacturer to make GW branded airbrushes, and I thought, can I see that happening? Maybe I can. And then not long after that, they started bringing out the air paints and started doing a load of airbrushing videos, and I thought, hang on a second, this might be coming true then. And then it basically disappeared and it never happened. So I don't know whether it was planned and it didn't happen, or whether the information I had was completely wrong. Tasty Brain Drain says, I never realised it, but yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, that Teddy Roosevelt bit. Basil saying, just sent a picture of the road going to my house. I'll have to have a look at it, mate. Lord Mins, I think you're right to guess that. Looking at it, 2 fantasy games, 3 sci-fi games, a mystery game. I think it's a title not shaped, so people keep guessing. I think it's shaped in that kind of like drawn out oval shape, the same as AOS, which makes me think it's kind of set in that world. I also think that I don't think Mordheim's ready to come back. Not when we've got like Warcry and it ends up competing in that same place. I don't think we're going to see like what's the other one I was trying to think of? Epic Armageddon and stuff. I don't think we're going to Epic 40k. I don't think we're really going to see that. I don't see them launching a new game with a full new range of like minis to then collect. I can see them at the minute. It would be perfect timing to bring in, like, Blackstone Fortress is finished now. There's no more expansions for Blackstone Fortress. It's done really, really well. I think now feels like the right time to bring in the next kind of like game like that. If you can play it solo with everything that's going on at the minute, that gives them another reason to be able to sell it. It brings a load of new minis in. if they're sculpting all the vampire type stuff at the minute anyway, that would kind of sort of be on the back of that type stuff. I could be a million miles away, but that's what my gut feeling tells me. James is saying it's weird the GW stores don't stock the air paints. My local one sends people to the friendly local game store down the road. Is that right, mate? I think my the one I kind of like, if I pick up any paints from GW, I'm pretty sure they do. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't stock them because they don't sell airbrushes. It's funny. I've never bought the air paints. I've never felt the need. Like I said before, I just thin down what I've got. Ed saying, as soon as I saw that, I thought Warhammer Quest. That's where my head went, mate. That's where my head. I've seen people getting excited, thinking more time's coming back. I've seen people thinking it's more about the old world, but they've already released a logo for that one, so I can't imagine it's the old world stuff. I can't imagine it's kind of epic 40k. I would laugh if it is Man of War or a kind of like a boat-based game based upon Armada coming out and Dystopian Wars coming out now as well. That would kind of put a bit of a smile on my face. But yeah, everything about it screams Warhammer Quest to me. Tony's saying, Marcus is saying Teddy Roosevelt is one of my favourite US presidents. He will hunt your ass down and beat you up. I definitely think there's some influence in that one. Tony's saying, be right back. Just take a couple of trial pics of my mini, see how it's coming along. Ed's saying, anyway, night all, thanks for the stream. James says, the one in pool definitely doesn't do them. I must admit, I feel like I've seen them, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe I've seen them somewhere else. Phil Campbell says, they definitely need to redo the zombie and ghoul minis. Very dated sculpts. Yeah, they have not been done in quite some time, have they? So who knows? Who knows? Can you, like... It just feels like the right time for something a bit different like that. Peter says, so good question about GW. They usually plan in advance, so would we now see them churning out their reaction to the pandemic that started about a year ago, e.g. a solo playable Warhammer Quest? And I think it wouldn't surprise me if the pandemic might have made them include a solo version or a solo mode. But if I remember right, can't you play a Blackstone Fortress solo? Like, it's a co-op game, so I think you can still play it solo. Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, you could play solo, even though it was co-op as well. I think the Hammerhall one, you couldn't. You had to play a two-player. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's got solo play in there, but it might not have been in reaction. It might have been a bit of a sort of a good foresight, but I do wonder if it was too early to say kind of thing. Or maybe they wanted to get this out in time for Christmas and it slipped with everything else that's been going on. Maybe it was meant to come out back end of last year. Paul says Hammerhall had rules for both co-op play and versus. I always thought it was just versus. Me, I must be wrong about that one then. Marcus is saying, I agree, Phil, the ghoul really do need new sculpts. Yeah, they're a bit long in the tooth. The Mantic ghouls are definitely a bit better than those ones. Mantic ghouls and Mantic zombies, considering they're like 10 years old now, have definitely kind of stood the test of time a bit better than the GW ones. Anyway, folks, it is just after 11 o'clock now. I've kind of put a few coats of stuff on. I'll show you where we've done now. So if anybody's kind of coming a bit later, I'll show you what we've been painting tonight. We'll get them under the camera. So let me get them down here. So we've got Lord Cooper there with these little doggies going hunting. So I've still got stuff to finish on these. Obviously, I'll paint the rims of the bases and stuff and a bit of dry brushing and stuff, but they're pretty much done. We've got Model 9. We've got the 3 Runaways. So there's a little bit more kind of tidy up, maybe a little bit of highlighting to do on some of these skins. But that is the crew. Let me just get the camera over them a little bit and a bit of light in there. That's the crew. So yeah, I've got like the skulls to finish off. I haven't done those yet. I need a bit of dry brushing and sort of tidying up around the wood on the base, and then the bases need a nice clean black trim around them as well. But that's them. I tried to basically, I want them to look like a team, if you like. I want them to look like a war band together, because it's dead tempting to kind of to paint them different colours and stuff. But I've used that basically that green, which I think, if I remember right, is that one, Calliston green, or Castellan green, I should say. That Castellan green is basically the colour that kind of ties them together. And then even with the dogs, I've put it on there. The dog colours are that green colour as well. I think I'll highlight those up a little bit just to make them stand out a little bit more. And then obviously the browns of the wood and stuff. They're explorers. They're called the Explorer Society. They're out hunting in the forest and stuff. I just think it pulls them all together nicely. So that'll be them. I've got a little bit of finishing off. I've still got his glasses and stuff to do. I need a little bit of work, I think, on his hair as well. It looks kind of unfinished as opposed to just like a white beard type thing. But yeah, a couple of hours, I think, of a couple of hours of not sitting chatting at the same time, and I think we'll be good. Phil says that Ascenorium Imperialis game was solo play, was it not? I don't know that, mate. Paul saying it was basically Silver Tower rules with the option to play with a Dungeon Master. Oh, I thought you had to play with a Dungeon Master, mate. Scott says, take care, all time to hit the hay. Good night, mate. Marcus is saying that was why originally I was excited by Beastgrave Grimwatch figures. Tony's back. Lawman says it's a great looking crew. Yeah, it's come together, mate, over a period of weeks. I'm not fast painting when I'm sitting talking to you lot. I don't pay enough attention to it, and I end up getting distracted by the chat. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's why we all come together. Peter saying I would do the dog collars in that green to tie them in. Yeah, I have done it in that green actually, mate, but it just looks a bit darker next to the brown. So I'll highlight those up, mate. I'll definitely highlight those up. Joachim saying you look really nice, Andy. Thanks for tonight. Thank you, Joachim. Hope you're well, mate. Hope that the sauna was nice. Marcus is saying see everyone next week. Blizzard saying looking good, and Phil saying night, Marcus. On that message, folks, we will say good night to everyone. Thank you, as always, to every single one of you that's been in tonight. Really appreciate your company. I realise that there's a million things you could be doing, even though you're stuck at home or wherever you are around the world. I do appreciate there's lots of other things you could be doing. So yeah, coming and spending your time with me is hugely appreciated. Christian sharing the link there for Patreon as well for anybody that wants to kind of check that out. Thank you very much. And there's another video tomorrow, so it's a clips from Monday's video, and it's basically the 5 tips about sort of if you're trying to get a beginner into wargaming. It kind of ties in with Tuesday's video as well. So that will be up tomorrow if you didn't see Monday's stream. And hopefully tomorrow what will I be doing tomorrow? I'm going to be trying to get these finished and trying to get the Malifaux done so I can get that ready for next week. Yes, and I'll leave it on the lovely words there of Duffy Mikowski: paint softly and carry a big brush. That might be my new sign off, mate. Paint softly and carry a big brush. I'll see you all next time. Thanks, folks. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.